Just for further clarification, the varsity football game is on Friday.
So we have to be done by Friday.
Yeah, that's right.
Somebody playing in particular? You got.
Whiteford's coming into town. They were supposed to be here Thursday.
Don't like them all this.
You got a kid on the team?
I don't.
Kid on the team, yeah.
No, I'm just a fan. All right, so we made it through the first half of the general fund at the end of last night. So. Where would you like to start?
It's really up to you guys, so just kind of quick recap, we made it all the way down to the library and general fund. As of right now, you guys are, or not you guys, but we are at a deficit of $100,699 in general. So obviously we need to figure out what we want to do there and finalize that. We can do that and start there, or if you guys feel like we need a break from general fund, we can go to major and move from there. It's really up to you guys. Either way, we do general fund now, or we will have to come back to it.
All right, so just before the meeting was started, we were starting to sort of look at that to get a starting point. And currently we have $80,000 proposed for the rotary shelter roof. That would be Excel line 556. And $55,000 for the parking lot rebuild at Farber. So if we do eliminate those two, because they don't complete the projects, then we're at a surplus of $34,301. So without having to do too much of a deep dive, those were the two big projects we sort of picked out last night.
And just keeping our 3-month fund reserve where we're at.
Yeah.
400.
Well, we already reduced the rotary shelter from 160 to 80. I'm not saying we shouldn't reduce it further. I'm just so.
Well, we weren't fully funding that project. We were
Right.
only half funding it for the year. Yeah, and as far as the 3-month reserve goes. You know, if we want to talk about minimums before we move on, we're pretty close to that. I wouldn't want to get any lower than a 2.5-month reserve. That'd be $375,000.
If you did that, that gives you a surplus of $109,301. And the kind of big remaining thing would be the library roof and the library appropriation. And the roof was estimated at 100,000, and then the appropriation was 332,576.
When was that estimate done on the roof?
I'm not sure. The library board provided that to us. Greg, do you know?
That was before COVID. That was Brown and Sons. And I had Klein Schmidt come out, and they wouldn't quote it unless we had an engineer look at it. Because the roof changed because it used to be a boiler system for heating. And then they put the AC units on the roof. That changed the integrity of the roof then. The structure of the roof. So they said, we're not going to quote it unless you have an engineer or an architect look at it and decide, you know, if it can be done that way.
It was 108,000 for the water treatment plant roof. And we did that.
Full size.
What's
That's
that?
fairly comparable.
That's what I would think. It's gotta be, I think, pretty close.
Do you know if that's a ballasted roof? Rubber membrane with stones that rock on top?
No, it's the white.
Okay.
I don't even know what.
Yeah, Alaska American, I think, or something like that's what they call that.
Yeah, and it's constantly has water on it. So like when they ran the heating and cooling, they put 4x4s and just blocked them up on top of that.
And so that would be different, because the water treatment plant does have all that stone and stuff on it that might be removed and that's put back. I don't know how much that would affect. So,
Are you saying there's drainage issues on it, or?
When I went up and took pictures for Klein Schmidt before and there were
The front quarters ugly, right?
that just always had water because it's not sloped properly or
Right.
anything.
Which that's pretty easy fix,
Yeah,
with foam stuff that they put down.
And then your tapered form,
but again, the roof isn't, I mean, I grew up a long time ago and they don't even use that stuff that they have on there now.
I wouldn't say any less than 100, you know, assume probably.
Where we're at. Did we do any further investigation as far as the fund balance for the library?
what is in this sheet that is what our accounting is.
Okay. So projected ending balance
Yeah, but he said there
one
was-
58, 286.
Like you said, there was some sort of separate account.
Yeah, I was a little bit confused by that. The accounts that we know about are
Yeah.
balanced, and I know Brandon and him look at those every month, and what's in the worksheet is the fund balance.
Right.
And I'm gonna talk to Bob about that, Mike, because I was a little bit confused about that, and I'm not sure if I was misunderstanding him. But that, I agree with you, it seemed like there was another account.
I think the difference is Bob's referring to physical checking account. That's actually at the bank and what that balance is versus. All the library funds in the general fund of the village. I don't think he understands that he's got funds in both accounts. He's looking at the bank account as one and that's it.
Because he kept referring to it as their savings account.
Correct.
Okay, I'm gonna give back something for you guys. So the library has two accounts with us. There is a savings account where they can all of their money going into, and then there's a second account that under me. It's called the library operations account, and that's where you put your appropriation into. The savings account, if they need something, this me to transfer money out of that into the operations account. And when we pay bills, I take that from the operations account and put it into the checking account, concessional disbursement, which is where we pay all the bills out. Now,
So that library operations account is expected to have a fund balance of 158.
when you say fund
286.
balance, when you say fund balance, it includes the savings account.
Okay.
It includes that, yes.
Okay,
I looked at it today, when I got here, there's $120,000 in that savings account. So,
okay. Does that make sense to everyone? All right, so those two combined accounts are expected to finish at that 158. So I mean, going back to that roof, if that we have 109 surplus, we can allocate 100. And hopefully the rest can come out of that library fund.
So just remember that some of that library savings account could potentially have been grants or bequests that are only allocated for potentially programs and other things that can't be used for
Right.
capital expenditures or employee wages.
I'm sorry, I can't see what you're talking to me, I can't.
No, I just thought, I looked at you.
Okay, so, okay, I just wanna say,
So before we go, do you know the answer to that? Is there any cushion there that could be used for?
I have no idea what portion of their fund balance is restricted. We have nothing on record showing that any of it's restricted.
Okay,
the best person would probably be to check in with Bob on that, because Bob has every detail, what you did everything.
all right.
Yeah, so
I don't have to.
and I would strongly recommend, I mean, we do are kind of the bookkeepers, like they set their budget, but if they have restricted funds, and I can work with Bob on this, they need to be identified like we did with our trust funds so that those are not misappropriated. moving forward, and that's across the board, all of village fund, all public dollars should account for those restricted fund balances.
Otherwise, it makes it challenging to know how much is really,
Right, because what
We
happens
don't know.
is, like, especially, I mean, I can speak for myself, when I came in, there was some transition before me, and that had got lost over time. So, and I know Bob's been here a long time, but you know, if he decides to move on or something, then we don't have that knowledge if it's not recorded. But again, I can work with him on that and, go through that information.
so I'm hearing you guys say for the roof for the library. Estimating using that number of 100,000, which we would now have, making those changes in what we discussed last night, those two particular accounts.
Right.
Gotcha.
Well, and then that's also dipping into our 3-month reserve. So it's,
Oh, I didn't understand that.
so we have a 3-month reserve right now,
I didn't.
valued at 450,000. So if you take half a month, would be 75,000. So we'd be left with a 2.5 month reserve of 375. We'd allocate 75.
I'm not sure how I feel about taking more of the.
Yeah.
of
Well,
the-
no, that's just
of
an
the- of
option.
that. Yeah, no, I mean, I hear where you're coming from, but I like having the full 3-month reserve in there
Mhm.
versus a 2.5.
Yeah, well, it's, I mean, we. Yeah, I understand. We have to pay it back at some point. And then that 3-month reserve will probably increase.
Or we look at something else to pay.
That's right, that's right. But that is just one option.
Understand.
That's paying percent.
Okay, gotcha.
All right, so let's move on to major. No one has any objections.
So revenues, we're showing a slight increase here, just due to the increase. Act 51 monies that we're seeing from the state, and we're projecting that to continue. Any questions there?
No,
Council is. This, oh, it's $10 increase for Social Security, Medicare, we bumped that up $10, but other than that, it's the same. Administrator, it's actually a reduction there. For about $300. Any questions? You guys stop me, I'll just keep going.
just keep going.
Administrative assistant, there's a reduction there, about $500, a little over. Clerk, there is a increase here of about $505. Which is just the way the benefits there. Treasurer, there is an increase of $305, same thing. Administration is the next section, there's a decrease here of $850. Street lighting, we are proposing the same budget as this year at 21,000. We're projected to spend a little bit less than that, but we're just not sure if the power cost will go up at all.
This is not where those lamps that we were discussing last night would come from.
No, that would be under maintenance.
Okay.
All right. Street construction, we've got transfers to local street of the 70,400. This is the portion of the Franklin Street. So we transfer it to local, and then local pays the portion of the debt there.
Oh, you said the streetlights was not just the cost of.
That's just the power, yes.
How much longer do we have on Franklin Street? We're getting closer.
Yeah, I've got Brandon actually updated that debt. Do you remember the year off the top of your head for Franklin Street? I don't. Franklin Street,
We can see.
what year?
Next year. Next year.
Next year. I know it's coming up too, but
So this budgeted payment's the last one. 2024, great,
So this is.
Yeah.
This budget, this budget, when we look at last one.
great.
yeah, that'll.
We-
Street maintenance, The wages and benefits, and the items in here are really the same as last year. The big thing, capital projects, and this is where if we wanted to fund any of the decorative lights, so right now you've got the road sidewalk trees striping, the salt cold mix sand, things like that, which totals $400,000. In this fund, if you have maintain a 6-month reserve, you have $504,470 in available funding. So you could potentially fund all those projects listed, plus have some additional money if you wanted to add the decorative lights. In fact, I can enter it and tell you exactly what you have. So if you fund all of those, you would have $104,470 available, and that would leave you the 6-month reserve in this fund.
You're talking the downtown lights.
Correct, that we talked about yesterday, that the DDA had requested that the village consider paying at least a portion, half is what they're asking for.
Who's stripping in the streets?
That's just the typo.
What?
Although
So
my,
serious.
I won't tell on you if it's you.
Speaker.
I just thought we'd get some cheaper strippers for 10 grand.
I mean, I don't know.
I'm all for replacing those lights. I mean, it's needed. And DDA would definitely appreciate it, working together. I think we can pull that off.
What's the proposed roads project?
I
340?
Yes, the 340,000 would be major road, and we would do. I have not narrowed this down until we get the funding, and it'll come to you guys. So I would imagine we'll do a combination like we did this year, and we'll just get as much as we can done because we'll bid it out as one with major and local streets.
Do we have a prioritized list of how the roads need done?
Yes.
Depot worse than.
I am working on that. It is not final yet, but my plan is to have that completed. And then that way you guys can approve that and make sure we're all on the same page, and then moving forward, we'll utilize that.
And then sidewalks, is that replace or is that infill or?
At this, that is, I think we can start doing both. You guys approved, we did a ton of sidewalks this year for replacement. And Brent and I kind of talked about this briefly, like we've made huge progress on our repairs. And I think we could start doing some infills if we continue to budget the sidewalk cost.
Infill is another word for.
Get up your subdivision, like.
Right, where
How do
there's
you-
gaps in sidewalks or areas
Okay,
that are.
then you call it
missing.
infill, okay.
Yes,
Yeah, like the cherry between Depot and.
There's a lot of side streets.
Okay.
and I haven't.
No curve.
Like one of your goals is to have like a sidewalk inventory and plan, but I haven't worked on that a ton because the master plan actually has a section that talks about sidewalks. So I kind of waited because I think that'll tie together, but I would imagine that if this is funded, that we do like a hybrid, we continue repairing, but also starting to do those infills.
Wow. That's progress,
Yes.
that's big progress.
On the street maintenance, I guess. Because you kind of have the motor vehicle fund that we charge the police department from, correct? But you also have the cost of like the DPW snowplow, things like that. When you're calculating what it costs to actually, take those out of this each individual fund, generally that would be winter. Right, like the actual time and the man hours and things like that, but equipment for it comes out of street construction or no? Because at one point we had a couple years ago, like blades and brooms and whatnot, but that's. What I'm saying, is that part of the motor vehicle fund or is it part of streets?
So we were doing
Come and go.
some of those, yeah, it's a little bit of both. So what we did is we were taking some of those blades and brooms to actually do the sweeping and snow plowing out of the streets, but then the actual equipment replacement, we were planning to take out of motor vehicle. Is kind of how we did that. What do you guys want me to put in for the decorative lights?
What was the number that you,
So Laura, the quote that Laura got was. It just under 60,000.
These are again at the ends of town, or where do we go?
No, it's downtown.
Sorry.
That does not, did not include the doing like the concrete bases though as well, so.
that, the 60 did not include that? That was one of the things they do want to do for the,
Right, so we had talked about lifting them up
Right.
and having that concrete base, because then when the sidewalks are salted, that salt's not sitting on those bases. Which is, we think what's causing a lot of that damage and corrosion.
What line are you on?
So I am still in, we would have to add a line because this was not in my budget when I sent it to you guys. But I would add a line under 136 for decorative downtown lights. And if I calculate that you guys fully fund the request, that leaves you with the 104,470 available.
What, it was, how much? Were the lights?
Just under 60 without the concrete.
I think we can make the DDA chip in that concrete portion. I think that's fair. And I think we can pull it off out of design funds. As much as I don't like to, I think we can. From carried over from this year.
but the 60 would be for the, still per month.
Half. 30.
No, she's saying 60, I believe.
The total was 60.
So you,
I just wanted,
you're saying 30 from the bill. I misunderstood. Okay.
so the DDA had asked if we would fund half of it. I don't know if you want to bump it up though, because that quote did not include the concrete. So I don't know if we can, and I'm not sure what that cost is, because I know Laura's still working on all that.
35.
Well, if we go to 40, my calculation is 64,470 remaining, which is a 3-month reserve.
So that would,
So if you fully fund the road, sidewalks, trees, striping, salt, cold mix, sand.
so that actually would leave you a 9-month total.
Why is that?
Because,
Doesn't leave us 64,470?
right, but that's after maintaining a 6-month reserve already. Which is good.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
not-
we're reaching up
I'm not
to 6,
complaining, I
that's
just want to make sure you know it's.
Okay.
Oh, well, then maybe we could take a look then and, what's that word you guys said?
Infill?
Yeah, infill, could we put down a number for infill? Like, I'm just saying 30 grand.
We wanted to do that for quite a while. We could
That,
start.
that's a nice project, yes. And still keep.
So
the
we
budget.
want to bump sidewalks. For
Is that what you
infill?
do? You don't have to distinguish between infilling and.
We can, that's completely up to you guys.
Yeah, replace and infill. But well, I mean, that's major, so there probably aren't a lot of majors that have or that need infill. Well, maybe Lanewood and Monroe would. So yeah, it probably would be a good place to
Okay,
start those.
sure.
Where do you want to bump that to?
50. That would be the 20 initial, and then the 30 on top of that.
Okay.
Does that still work for our fund balance and, or not fund balance, but the reserve?
Yes.
Jane?
Are you still doing 35 for the lights?
I have 40.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's, we have a $34,000 surplus in that fund.
So let's go through and make sure there's nothing else, because we do have street traffic, that budget's proposing to stay the same. Definitely, if you guys have questions, stop me. Winter, for the plowing and things, that is a little bit increased. And that's due to equipment rentals. We bumped that up $2,000. And then US 223 maintenance there, which is bumped up. And we did that because we did go over a little bit here with some of that tree maintenance and things like that. So we just bumped that in case some things came up this year as well, because it was pretty minimal. Any other questions there?
There's no transfer out in the general fund to major, correct?
General fund 2 major?
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
general fund, we had that 300,000 to local,
So, okay. Yeah,
which
just
gets
trying to
less
catch up here.
funding. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, we ready to move on to local?
No, hang on one second. No, I just want to make sure I got the numbers right. So you're saying to me, or to all of us, the roads, the sidewalks, the trees, the striping, the salt, and then you're adding on the lights. And then, so that can be done. And then we have, what's our fund or our reserve number percentage again?
So that would leave you with 154,470 for your reserve, which is about 7 point. Just over 7 months.
Okay. Are you guys okay with the 7 month?
Yeah. It's about a $20,000 a month reserve balance. You wanna look at that?
Yeah. I recommended a 6 month here.
That's why I was curious what, I thought the recommendation was a 6 month.
Yeah, so I did ask, and this is, it's weird because the auditors give you no recommendation for fund reserves except for general fund,
Mhm.
it's the 2 to 4 months. Everything else, they say it's completely up to the municipality.
Yeah, I'd even be okay allocating an additional $10,000 to the street lighting.
Yeah, because what do you
Yeah.
need, like, if you're not gonna have a critical
Right.
major street rebuild in the middle of something that's 7 months worth. Where are you getting it? Because looking at like your yellow block there, how are you getting an increase in that? That's including all of those requests from.
Yeah, if you take the 340
Mhm.
and add it to column I.
Right.
And then the 20, we added 30 to that, so that sidewalks becomes 50, 10, 10, 20. And then an additional line item. Street lighting, decorative, 50. And then it should calculate down at the bottom. So our fund balance would be 144,470. So we have
That's what I have.
basically a $24,000 surplus over a 6 month reserve.
We good?
That's fair, yeah.
Well, I was just gonna say, could we look at some more influx? Is that appropriate or not appropriate? Or infill, thank you. I said influx, yeah.
My only concern is that we're gonna start getting to a point where I don't know how much work in the season we can take on.
Okay,
That would be my only, and I don't know, I don't know that we've ever pushed that limit, so I'm not sure what it is. I would start with this because you're
Okay.
also going, so when we go to local, we try to match those projects as much as possible and do both local and major together.
okay.
But I mean, ultimately, it's up to you guys.
No,
Plus,
cool.
We can try to get quotes and see where they're at too, and then we have an idea if we need to do a media
You
budget
could do
amendment or
it,
something.
amend it, that's true. Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, moving on to local.
Okay, so revenues here are higher. And that is due to the transferring from general this current fiscal year, we did 120,000. That's at 290,000. Which we talked about yesterday. You guys can adjust that. It does ultimately mess with your total funding.
290 or 300?
290, because we adjusted that down because of the
Yeah.
I remember some things.
Yeah.
Council pretty much the same, administrator went down. Like $15, zoning administrator. Is, or I'm sorry. Administrative assistant is up a little bit. I'm sorry, it's down. About 500. Clerk is. Overall down about $70. Treasurer is up about 800. Stop me if you have questions, and administration is down. Street lighting is, we're proposing a little bit of an increase there, again, just anticipating that the electric costs go up. Transfers are just listed there because of past budgets, there's nothing budgeted there. Street maintenance again stayed pretty much consistent. Equipment rentals were bumped up a little bit, and then you've got your capital project requests there. It's the same items that we have in major. However, we have less funding available here, and we have more local streets than we do major. So if you do a 6-month reserve here, and I guess again you guys could adjust this, but that'd be about $100,200. That leaves you $296,663 in available funding.
Say that again, Dana.
So if you maintain that 6-month reserve, it leaves $290,663. 290,000.
For 90,000, yeah.
Well, we transferred last year 120, right?
Yes.
So are you planning on bigger projects or just building the fund? Or more project, you know, I mean, because now you're requesting 300. So what's the,
So we dropped it last year to try to focus on some general fund projects, and the intention was that it was not going to be a permanent drop down, because we used to fund it at 375,000 a year. But because of the general fund health or lack thereof, maybe we dropped it. So if we need to do some kind of transfer, otherwise this fund isn't covering itself and we're not taking care of our streets. So the intent with that, Mike, was to be able to still do some capital projects this year, so that we don't fall behind on the streets. And again, you could drop
we've done
that
quite a
fund.
few. I mean,
We
I know,
did
yeah.
really good progress this year.
we're not really rebuilding.
And you guys can say, let's not do any roads, but if you want to do sidewalks and trees still, or anything like that, I mean, you let me know.
Well, here's the thing, because that 300 comes from general, obviously. We pride ourselves on keeping good streets, but we're also trying to catch back on the general fund. For the library, for the roofs, things like that. So I mean, we could cut that short maybe this year. We're paying off Franklin Street this year. That's 67 more that we'll have potentially next year to start playing catch up.
But does that Franklin Street, that's a major, right?
No, it
No,
comes
so-
out of,
It comes out of general?
yes. No, it comes out of streets.
Came from,
Oh, okay,
it's paid off by local.
okay. Got it. All right, so, what's your target then? Want to drop it 90,000, want to drop it to 200? What does that look like?
What are you looking at, 200?
Yeah. I-10 or I-9?
Yeah, so that gives you,
I've funded sidewalks, trees, striping, and the salt. And dropped it to 200. We're still well funded.
So shifting back 100 into general,
Yeah, no, well, 90. Going from,
you know what I'm saying? And now
Yeah,
that
we go
helps
one-
get us a lot closer to where we needed to be, but. You know, I don't want to short our streets, you know what I mean, because we have done pretty well on them. And then maybe we can look at the next reconstruction, you know, Cherry Street or, you know, curb gutter, whatever it is, North Lane. down the line, we're paying off this large scale sewer separation project that was done 20 years ago. So that's good. Do we start with a next big project of replacing infrastructure above and below and curb and gutter and, worth quick, whatever it is. So I guess, what is the plan? If we want to suffice to try to get through this year, help the library out, help get some roofs or whatever, and then we say, okay, next year, we hold our feet to the fire and we come up with different ways to fund, the library and the other things. It gives us a little bit of wiggle room for this transition here.
Okay, so I'm gonna backtrack just for a second. So if you guys do that, then your general fund, you've got a surplus or like extra of $99,301. Are you wanting me to apply that to the library?
They put them in 308, 301 with your 209 that you had in there. You had 209 in, correct?
Correct. So that, 308, 301, is that what you said?
Yep.
I just want to point something out. If you go to 203, 215, 702, the clerk's wages, I think that should be 3,200, not 2,200.
What tab?
We don't have tabs.
Are you looking at local?
Local?
Yeah,
I think it should match the treasurer's. I mean, that might have been a typo, but I wanted to figure it out.
Either that or the treasurer is incorrect.
No, I think the clerk's incorrect.
Because your department head is asking for 2,400. Administrator's 2,400.
Yeah, treasurer is incorrect.
The treasurer wages is 2,350. Should that be 2,400 and then the administrators?
Yeah, it's treasurer that's incorrect,
2,400.
because I've got my
So
employee cost worksheet
I
here.
60. So it's $1,000. It's negligible variance there.
What is that in local that you're talking about?
Yes, yeah, I 60.
Well,
It
I don't
is,
have-
it should actually be,
It's right here.
so it's under the treasurer, under local street, we had 34, it should be 2,400 there.
Just saying my laptop doesn't have spreadsheets.
Mine only opens up so it will read it. I can't make changes.
I guess you guys are getting a new laptop, so.
I think it'll be on there.
Okay, I've got that corrected, thank you. Okay, so are we good with? Go back to local, so after that, so
Is there any reason not to allocate money to the roads? Even if we don't do anything with it this year? Or do you just
you
keep
can
it?
always carry it forward.
Or just keep
too.
it
Nothing wrong with that.
Or just keep it in the fund balance?
Yep. Helps us prepare for the next big
Yeah, right.
rebuild.
So do we keep it in the fund balance or do we allocate it to roads?
It's completely up to you guys, because you can so whenever I call it carry forward, but you're really reappropriating those funds.
I think we should line item that it is, we don't want to suspend or spend it to say,
It needs to be specific.
yes, like, we're gonna try to carry it over as
You
a
want-
bank or was.
You want, let's do 140,000 on roads then, is that what you're
Yes.
thinking, James?
Yes,
Okay,
exactly.
and then that maintains a 6-month reserve, fund reserve for local streets.
Correct.
So the only thing I didn't really go through, but street winter, street traffic, those are. For the most part, the same. Winter, I bumped up a little bit. There, but otherwise, if you guys have questions, let me know. Garbage fund is next. And this one's really hard to budget because we never know how many tags we're gonna sell, but typically whatever we bring in revenue is what we expense out. We kind of matched what our historical information is there, but please let us know. We'll go on to the DDA. So this is the budget that's been recommended by the DDA board to you guys.
I'll pull out the garbage, recycling. So the 2023 amended budget was 12, and now we're going up to 21. Well, I guess 18, but up to 21. So are we just getting more people buying recycling bins, and then that gets
And
paid out?
the, because of the contract, the
Higher,
fee goes
right.
up each year too. Which
And
has
literally
been-
it just is in and out because it goes right back to Stevens anyway, right?
Correct, yes. Any other questions with garbage?
Yeah, what? No, I guess not, never mind, nope.
Okay,
Is there any way to do a cleanup day if we have anything expendable?
Like a bulk trash,
If we talk about how
We have to.
frustrating the ordinances are, maybe if we could help. Once in a while, once it's mass collection or a bulk collection, we'll say we'll do it once or twice a year. Again. Historically, back in the day, garbage was included in taxes, there's including services, things like that, got drawn out, previous councils, whatever. I mean, I think that's a good way to reinvest back in the village, say, okay, you know, we're gonna stick to our guns and ordinances. You know, we wanna clean things up, we'll help you as much as we can, here's your opportunity, here's your chance. It's probably cheaper when we spread it across the board, so I mean, it's
How would you-
something I've wanted to do in the past, and I know other communities do it, and it's successful, the county does it, so. If there's a way to help people out, if there's a way to help keep this crap
would
out of
you-
people's yards, it's
How could you, I mean, where would you take it from?
probably
I
on
mean,
the.
With the garbage,
it would have to be general fund, yeah,
so it
so
would have to be, it can't be to the garbage fund.
the
It would
garbage
be on the
fund.
transfer, probably, right?
Yeah, so we do have, I don't know if you guys recall, we charge, so the bag tags, we charge 50 cents for 10 tags, and that's to help cover the cost of our labor. Right now, that's sitting in this fund and it is minimal, so the fund balance for this is $6,051. We're not proposing to transfer or move that at all because we expense out our tags before it's revenued. So we like to have that little bit of cushion before we would propose to transfer that to general fund to help offset those wages. So that is pretty minimal. So the only place that it would really qualify is would be general fund.
Just to clarify, the bank balance today have talking about 6,000 is actually not cash. This also going to checks on him, maybe in the state.
yeah, we'd have to get a price on that.
That's just what I was thinking. How do we even know what the budget? We'd have to talk to Stevens. about it.
Yeah.
I like the
Do
idea,
a charge.
I like the idea too. I'm a little bit jaded, only because completely different place, but in Rollins, I was over at the landfill and we used to do a community, we actually did a free landfill week. And we tried multiple things. We did like curbside pickup, we did where you could bring it out. And the whole idea of doing that was because of code enforcement. And then what happened is it started to backfire on us because people were saving until the free week. So for a year, they had all this trash and then they'd come out to the landfill to get rid of it I mean, it was
I
terrible.
can see it happening easy enough, for sure.
So it was kind of a catch-22.
Mhm.
Every year, we're like, do we keep doing this because we're having more code violations?
I can see it.
Just there, again, I'm not saying it's a bad idea, because there have been residents that have brought that up to me as well, and said, you know, we'd love to see something like that.
well,
and I don't know-
currently they can get a bulk trash tag, can they not? They can get a large item trash tag,
Right, those are $10 each.
and they'll take as much as a sofa.
Yes. I do think it's gotten a little bit more challenging with Stevens, and when we sell them, we recommend to the people, like, call them and talk to them because we've had some issues. Somebody had bulk tagged their a mattress, but then they didn't wrap it. And Stevens didn't pick it up, and then it rained, and they're like, well, it's too heavy now, we're not picking it up. But if they'd have got it in the first place, so they do take sofas, mattresses, things like that, yes.
Okay, all right, well, food for thought. Maybe price it out.
Well, and the county does a cleanup. I wonder if we couldn't partner with them somehow and maybe share some costs to make it more affordable, I don't know. Just spitballing, but something to look into.
Did you say spitballing?
Yes.
Do those tags specify you need to wrap the mattress?
No.
No,
I mean, how do people know?
they don't, because I had one lay there too before.
Yeah, so we tell them now because we learned from having some issues. So again, that's another, we tell them, you gotta wrap it, make sure you call and let them know and try to give people a heads up, but the tags do
I
not.
just burned mine from the curb.
I think.
Let's save it for Halloween.
They us and burn it.
They're doing the regular pickup. If they find you a large item, they don't want for necessarily in the truck and they have to make a run.
Yeah, that may be.
That's what I talked to them because I called them. They said, if you let us know, we can make room in the garbage truck
Okay,
for your big items.
makes sense. Okay, DD8, ready for that one?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't, if you guys have questions here, let me know. I mean, the board, I will say, does a really good job with Laura going through all of this and this is the budget that kind of meets their goals and ideas. I wouldn't recommend changing that. I would take their recommendation, but again, if you have questions.
I see they have obviously their reserves there as well.
Yes,
Good.
and I think they're at a 7-month.
What's this 5 or 5 months? Yeah,
Sorry.
That's right.
And if you look at revenue
Yes, it's clear.
is just under the expenses, so we are running a deficit there, but that's fine.
I was saying the part though that I like to see is the clarity of the revenues coming in for the movies on lanes, the antiques and art, and then knowing what the cost of that event is as well. So it's kind of going both ways.
My only point is, we try to make these things self-sustaining, much like, like Wassel is a huge one. They really requested a large increase in that. So again, the money that we invest in these programs needs to be sponsorships or donated or whatever. Like, I don't want to dip too deep and say, well, we're going to pull off this $40,000 Yuletide or $35,000 Yuletide and not be able to fund it. So again, a lot of the events are self-funding or at least breaking even. And then going back to like my points last night, pretty much the entire TIF goes towards wages. So it leaves very little for any of the sort of improvements, physical improvements that we try to accomplish. It's a challenge. Do you remember if when she created this, when Laura created this, did it include a wage increase?
Yes, it does. Yep, it covers. Yeah.
Is that based on what MML gave you?
Yes, yeah.
Is that 3%?
The MML recommendation is what I incorporated, which includes the 3%, and then they recommended that each employee then move to the next closest step.
And then there was also email. I don't know if you saw the email. That would specifically show.
So you go to the.
Yes. Specifically. Everyone's wages.
Yeah, it should be two-sided.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. So this is the same thing that the email is, yes.
Just trying to save paper.
Yeah.
Any other questions about DDA?
I had this.
Building department is next. And this is.
Yeah, hold on, sorry, regarding the DDA. Explain your transfers for me, I guess, just in general. Didn't the general show a $60,000 transfer?
That is your tip collection.
Oh, that's right, okay.
So that's recorded as a tip collection for revenue for you guys. Because that's, we collect the taxes and then we transfer out of the DDA tip portion. And then you get it when we go through like the pool, those debt funds transfer as well. And then, am I missing anybody? The tip transfers, the general
Yes.
general fund and the debt funds, right?
Yeah, like.
Okay, let's making sure I wasn't missing.
And then there was vacation became a, and this one, because of the 3
Okay, building. This one's a little bit hard too, because it fluctuates year to year what we do for permits, but essentially we're collecting the permit fees and then we're paying our inspectors and zoning and Stacy for her zoning or permit work. But if you guys have questions, it's not really a huge change. It's a decrease in expenditures across the board. It's a little bit of an increase in revenues, but let me know if you have questions. We don't really need a fund balance in this one, but we have one because we do make a little bit more. And I'm trying to figure out what we could use it for. Brandon is not loving me for my ideas. So we'll let you know on that, to be determined. Okay, we keep moving on.
Yeah.
So the next tab is library. This, again, I touched on this yesterday. The library board has the full authority to set their budget. The only thing we do is the appropriation. So if you guys have questions, I would defer to Greg on those or the library board members. Otherwise, I've got that appropriation from the transfer into general at 308, 301 right now.
Go, hang on one quick second here. So we went from the 209,000, that was your recommendation initially. And then with the number, with the 100,000 being placed in.
So $308,301. And that we would do the same, any appropriations would be, so this year we did quarterly and we would continue to do that. So at the beginning of every quarter, they'd get a fourth of their total payment.
Okay, so that's still doesn't fulfill their total request for appropriations, is that correct?
Correct, that would, oh my goodness.
Where we have 32,576 is what they were.
Okay, that's what I was
And
double
that's
checking.
basically the attorney fee difference.
And the problem with that is we're kind of
24,275.
requesting that we have this happen, so we're kind of asking them to do for the attorney on their own to make themselves more self-sustainable, so it's kind of we're kind of talking on both ends on that too, so it's kind of
Right.
a challenge.
And it's not, and I know Bob, I apologize for not being here yesterday, but I had a family emergency I had to take care of. I didn't get home till 3 this morning, so. We have gone to the board, to the other townships twice. We've asked for at least the 3/10. I know Bob said that, they said they'd have to do millages. I know Hale's on board. I blew him off again, but I talked to him. We're supposed to go there, but I went to Ogden this last time instead. So he's on board. We've talked to the attorney. I have a I don't know, a resolution that we're gonna use. We just don't know which one we want to do. Because like Palmyra doesn't want to necessarily, Riga doesn't necessarily want to do a district library. And I don't know if Bob filled you in on it or not. The easiest way to do it would be doing the school district, because by doing the school district, it's just, they don't have a choice. But personally, I think they each should have a say on the board from the township side, you know. Blissfield have one, the village have a couple, Ogden, Riga, and Palmyra. You know, that way they have a say. Representation, and it could expand services too, you know, with some things with that representation. So that's the strategy that we're at. And unfortunately, if you truly think about this, the district library is not the village library board. That's how it's actually a separate board. Once we begin to do the district, it's a whole separate board that begins that process. So it's not us. It could be one of us or a couple of us, but it would be the people that are appointed to the district library board that then would request the millage.
Elected or appointed? I mean, how do we?
It originally could be appointed.
Because
but
that's probably where they
then you're
provide
by-
representation by each, you know, different township. or whatever.
Right, and I mean, that's kind of, if you want representation, do this, you know, and like Ogden, they were forthright, they're like, you know, if we don't get on board, we don't have a say.
Right.
And they like, we want to have a say. But again, they're mainly farmland, so, you know, somebody that has farmland is going to pay a heck of a lot more than the person that just has a home. So,
Not trying to beat a dead horse on it, because we did have a ton of discussion obviously yesterday.
Yeah.
But, okay, so say any of us go to the library, we can check anything out. Like, we don't have to pay for the library card, right? That's
no,
as a village.
no.
But anybody out of the village,
If we didn't have service contracts with them, we currently have service contracts with them, with Ogden, Riga, Palmyra.
and see, so again, that's a different funding mechanism. They're literally riding the taxpayers of village.
They are.
Blissfield, you know, we're the ones paying to operate that library. They can come in and check anything out on the village's dime.
Greg, are you feeling good about your progress?
I am. I mean, and that's sometime, like when I first started talking to the attorney, she said, you could do it quick or you could do it slow. I want to do it mediocre, so I'm not mediocre, but I want it on the November 24th ballot.
So that's your target?
That's my target.
So we're just a little over a year out.
Right, I mean, because that way it's on there, it's yes or no, if it,
And it's a big election. It's a
Right.
presidential cycle.
so I mean, that's my goal. I said, let's get it done, let's get started. And again, it's not, it probably, I would hope that would be me because I have so much experience, but it doesn't necessarily mean it would be me. But just from the experience standpoint, getting it done, getting out there, having the yes committees, you know, just like the school board, or, you know.
The school board did go to their own vote
Right,
and it passed.
right,
So
so,
not as. It was a lot closer than I was expecting,
Yeah.
even on its own ballot, so.
I mean, and
I think I
that's,
agree with going with November 24.
I mean, there's no way we could do, we could not have done August, you know, the primary, and if we had to hold a special election, then there's added fees.
Right.
In that, so the November
I think
24th,
the school board said it was $35,000 to hold that special election.
right, and that everybody came here, so,
Right, the whole school, yeah, the whole school board came there.
yeah.
Greg, would the individual townships appoint their members to the district board?
So,
Or
For
is
the-
that appointed by someone in Lansing? or-
no, it would be however you set up your district, you could say that we're gonna appoint from this or the school, whoever's in the school district. So you could have 7 people, if we have 7 people off a rider, if they appointed it, you know, appointed it that way, if it was school board, that's why I want that commingling of the school board. Or the school district and the township, that way they have buy-in. That is ultimately how I'm perceiving that to go forward.
Okay, so
So
right now you're getting buy-in from Blissfield Township, Ogden Township.
Blissfield and
Okay, so
Ogden, Riga's sketchy. Riga asked, well, why don't you just become part of the Lenawee District Library? Well,
Been there,
basically,
done that,
huh?
we've been there, done that.
Well, and the thing is, you're gonna look at 20 hours a week. That's about what every branch has for service. So, and you have basically 2 people. So, yeah, you get some other things there, but you don't have the community, you don't have the time being open, you know. A lot of people use it, you know, it's just, otherwise you're gonna be Deerfield, oh, I can't go to the library after school, you know, because it's closed, you know, it's only open 2 days a week or 3 days a week, so,
Which it used to be.
yeah, I mean, yeah, long.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
short day hours or.
I've done a lot of research, you know, it used to be. Even back, it was the appropriation, which it was kind of convoluted, $7,000 back in like 56 to run the whole library. So it was like, huh, to 300, you know, it's like, oh, wow, you know, and then it's like, you know, Joe Spiegel's on the board. She went from 50 cents an hour to 70 cents an hour for her hourly wage as a clerk in high school. So, you know, so it's just like, you know, it's interesting. And again, I use it more electronically than I do going in person. You know, I'll read the newspapers, I do movies, stuff like that. It's all free. And you can do it, access it anywhere. You know, I got Al on, you know, Navarro being able to look at his newspapers. He was paying for subscriptions, you know, 99 cents a month to look at stuff. And I said, you can just log on with your library card, I think, and look at your newspapers for free. So he's like, I don't have to pay money, so.
Yeah, he was all for that, wasn't
Oh, yeah, you bet he was.
Yeah.
So,
So here's the thing with the service, I guess just some questions, the service agreements with the other townships then, okay, so we're collecting penal fines from them or whatever.
right,
But literally, none of those residents of an outside township have to pay to get a card.
no, because we have that service. And
So
that's
something
why,
that we could revisit, or if we.
Well, and that's why we
We
asked-
don't have to worry about that.
that's why the state,
But that's a terrible agreement, I mean, yeah, we'll collect penal fines, but they collect our penal fines too. you know,
Right.
And again, we still front all.
and that's, at that time, that's what the attorney recommended. You know, take and penal fine, this is the first year our penal fines actually went up. They went up by $1,800. Every other year when we first broke from the library or, you know, the county, it was like $36,000. Like last year, or it was like before this year, it was like 18,000. So it just continually went down. The police need to pull more people over.
Well, the other 2 things that we, you know, like we brought up with Dr. Bob, Shelley last night, the communication or lack of, you know, we don't know where we're at regarding. How far you guys are progressing with that, so we sat here at the board, you were here, you know, at this time last year, you said we can't fund what we're funding now. So if, you know, if we make any promises, which I can't guarantee. But something has to move forward in order to continue coming up with ideas to become more self-sustainable. And then secondly, you know, we need to figure out how we're gonna do these things, this discussion with the lease, because again. If we're paying, if it's a quote, the village is building, are we paying for the maintenance? Are we gonna pay for the roof? Are we gonna pay for the parking lot? These are big ticket items that we have to figure out. And it's very challenging for us to try to budget and not know where we're at on what we're gonna do with the building.
Right, I mean, we got the employee lease, the building lease is gonna be a little more tricky because we don't have income. As a library, you know, all our services are free, you know, it's. You know, I sent you, James and Danielle, just email. About the capital improvements from the MLA, which I know the deadlines.
I think the lease is more for insurance, is it not? Like, we can have a nominal amount of $1.
The lease has no rent payment.
Yeah.
It's just for insurance.
It just says that the library will notify the village of capital improvement projects for budgeting purposes. And that the village has the authority or the ability to say yes or no to funding those.
Yeah.
But
Can we just hash this out with an email? You know, like this is the lease stuff, this is,
Yeah, we can finish it up by email.
yeah, I mean, that way, because.
I think we're far enough.
I mean,
along.
we are, I mean, we did the employee lease list, it's been on my checkbox to get done, so. I'm not opposed to getting that done and finalized, I really.
I thought it was left with your attorney.
Well, the last was, we had. I know our last meeting, it's been so long. But I think there was a dollar amount that we said that up to, and then there was.
Okay.
Something that, well, we could just do everything at that particular, a dollar amount,
Right.
that wasn't our intent. You know, it was like,
Right.
you know, that's where we're at, and I just figured out, we did. Since I've been on the board, we've put $200,000 out of trust fund money that we could use for anything into the library. So, you know, we did the addition, we've replaced the HVAC systems twice. We put new carpet in, so we've put a lot of money, we renovated some bathroom, the other bathroom that was bad, so, I mean, it's.
And that stuff, we just need to come into agreement, because
Yeah.
it's just like us renting out. And any building that we own to whatever entity, we need to get something back out of it. We can't continue to just fund it and walk
But
away and
it's,
say, here's the
isn't the
deal.
deed say it has to be the bequest, it has to be a library and an auditorium? I think that's how it reads.
I pulled the deed, it says something about it has to remain as a public use. It doesn't specifically, it says library or public use. I have that saved, so I can send it to everybody as well again and look at that.
But I have asked for the 3 pence every time that I've gone. And it's just like, well, we gotta put it on the ballot, and it's like, at what point, like if I came to you guys and said, if you were a township, okay, I need 3 pence of a mill. Can you put it on the ballot? What happens then? I mean, who would say, yeah, we're gonna do it or not?
So you're not getting an answer from the.
Not getting an answer, yes. Al's willing to do it. He just doesn't know the process. So again, and that's the thing, if we become a district library, that 3 pence of a mill doesn't matter, because we're gonna do the millage of whatever that dollar amount is to sustain the library as a district library, whatever that dollar number needs to be. So I think we figured it out, it might have to be close to 3 mil.
Well, if we don't do it by school district, then,
Well,
you know, which would make sense, but if we don't, and these townships are starting to opt out or whatever, then we need to start
well, then,
making them pay a fee to come in.
and that's exactly, I think Adrian and Tecumseh now are at like $150 per family if they want to come use the library. So, and not offer, like if you work in town, you're out of town, charge for it as well.
So you just, the goal is in November of 24
24, yeah.
to go ahead and have a vote for Blissfield for the district library.
Yes.
Okay. What, I don't want to be a pessimist, and that's not how I'm looking at this. I'm trying to be proactive. What if this does not go to vote?
So if it doesn't go to vote, then we're still a village library. And at that point, I would say, and I asked Woodlands, Kate, and I've asked the attorneys, the half mil that we used to get up until 63, I think it was. And Kate said, who's the Woodlands person, there was a constitutional change.
Is that clear?
No, this is Kate. She is the manager director of Woodlands Consortium that we're part of.
Okay.
But she has a lot of library, and her and Claire, but the half mil, we could potentially ask for that again. Okay, at that point. I don't know what a half mil is, what,
40,000.
40 now?
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's 40,000,
It helps.
yeah. I mean, and that's, I,
And then we also start charging the outside
then
users.
say,
because it
then if you're gonna,
brings in some income.
and we could say our service contracts now are 3/10 of a mil. For Blissfield, Ogden, and everybody else. So, and like Ogden, I think 3/10 of a mil would be 25,000 a year. You know, and they don't have a large population, it's all farmland. You know, Riga is, I think, next, which I think it was like 19-20,000. And then Palmyra, it's only the part that is Blissfield schools, because there are 4 school districts over there. And they're maybe 12, but it's still dollars.
Mhm.
You know, so you're looking at, and then Blissfield Township. You know, I don't know what that dollar, but that's considerably less than those 3, that's the smallest. You know, we.
Well, Riga needs to understand that, what, 75% of their kids at least come to Blissfield.
Oh, yeah,
School.
I mean, and that's, you know, Bob was like, okay, so, you know, out Rhodaseller, it's it's Riga Township, but it's Whiteford schools. You know, so what do you do with those kids? Well, there isn't a library in Whiteford, or, so if the nearest one is Blissfield.
Here in Bedford, right?
Yeah, I mean, Bedford's a little height compared, I mean, it's 6 one way and half a dozen another.
So as far as our budget is concerned for the library, we're at 308, 301.
I don't think we can do much more.
No,
Yeah.
And I'll go ask again, you know, I don't want to say, if they put the 3/10 on. And we asked for the district library, I mean, we're kind of, I don't, how do you? If this doesn't pass, then go back and say 3/10 right away, how do you put that on a ballot that? 3/10 and.
I think you'd have to go for the district first. If it fails, then at the
Then go-
next election cycle, you go back
Right.
for the 3/10.
Which would, what, be February,
April.
April, I don't know, March, I don't know.
But that's the stuff that we need in order. I mean,
And we've had these conversations. So back when Jim was here, he's like, you only put in your minutes when you make motions and things like that.
well, I politely disagree with Jim.
But I'm just
I mean, you
saying,
guys went into closed sessions, and we don't even know when the closed sessions for, not that we should have to know that, but that's
That's law.
a law, when you go into closed sessions, there's only certain reasons
that's
we go
okay.
into them.
That's a funny take on it, because all the professional environments I've been in, it's a recap of every minute.
Yeah, so,
So it basically captures conversation and captures emotions. and
Right.
Captures.
well, it
approvals.
captures motion, yes.
Well, it captures conversations as well.
Yeah.
So, and if emotions made, whether like all that, definitely.
And we do all our motions, I mean, we
Well,
do.
Greg, I'll say this, tonight speaking to you and last night speaking to Bob, I've learned more in those 2 nights.
yeah,
And I have a lot of dialogue with Karen as well, but I think everyone else was really sitting in the dark. So thank you for coming in, representing the library, and thank Bob too, I mean, he's very passionate about it, we saw it last night, so.
Yeah, he is.
It's amazing to see, but it's just, like, if he had stuck around for the rest of the conversation, he would have seen how tight this operating budget is.
No, I get it.
It is shrinking every year and it's getting harder and harder and harder, so.
Well, we need industry.
Yeah.
We need something.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so optimists say this goes through in November of 24. I mean, when does it become implemented? Because then are you waiting another year to draw that, or, you know what I mean? Because then how do you find?
I don't
Like, see,
know that.
because again, we're gonna be talking about this come next
I
fiscal
would
year.
just-
Or you don't collect the tax
Yeah.
until July, so yes. they would
So
have to-
so then you've got 6 months that we have to figure out how do we fund through that period.
Don't we
So-
have people
We'll
from
be
our,
funding it for a full year after.
but don't we have people from our board here that are part of, just for the agreement? And I say this out loud, part of our board here meeting with you guys, I think we need to, personally, I think some of this needs to be in writing. I don't want it verbal, we can't have it verbal.
Well, we did last year and it was like Dr. Bob was shocked by that in that dialogue that we had, and I thought we were pretty Clear eye on what we,
We were very clear
yeah,
last year,
yeah, that would work.
and that's
No,
why.
So, and I hate to put you in the hot seat right now, but what cuts did you guys consider when putting together this budget? If any,
What can we cut?
I don't know.
Well, the wages is, I'm.
I mean,
just
so,
making a comment on the 5%
let's think about this, Gwen. So you're giving the DDA director a 3% increase plus the MLAL increase, correct? The step increase. Okay, so a person that has a doctorate with a library degree, not
I'm not
Okay.
listening to you.
we didn't take part in that MLA
I
because
wish you would have.
I should not have, because I could find all that information. Because the MLA has all that information for library people available out there right now, real time, of what everybody was making close in the area to the same category of library. So I did that research myself. Okay, Bob is making about $15,000 to $20,000
I
less.
could assume that too, yeah.
Okay, than what other people of his stature and academic ability
I
are
understand.
in the area. So if we cut his wages 5%, he's gonna go somewhere else.
I'm not saying to cut his wages. One of the questions that James was just asking is, what has been cut? And what, what changes, what has been cut in the,
What, I mean.
and my comment was.
What,
And if there wasn't any, then that's fine.
80% of the,
If you guys are operating the same way we are on a super slim,
That's all we're.
that's,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
that could be the answer.
I mean, we're where we're at. I mean,
Well,
that's,
and that's what I was trying to allude to, is it, I don't care.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know, because this is, again, one of the things we're not in the know. Is it a 3% raise? I don't care. Is it a 4%?
no,
Is
it's,
it 5%?
we went with a 3%.
No, that's not what he said. He said a 5, I thought last night.
That's what he said.
So I don't,
Whatever was on the appropriation that I sent you, James, it's on the right hand side.
so
Yeah, we
I
have-
don't,
we have
again,
that.
I'm not, I don't wanna argue that part with you.
I
Greg,
don't
I'm
know
just
whatever he
asking.
put, whatever was on the
Yeah,
appropriation that I sent.
wages at 5 across the board,
Okay.
part full and part-time.
And again, so I can tell you from experience, like the village, or Monroe County government. They recommended that they had somebody come in and do the survey and did all that. And somebody was making $11 an hour, and the recommendation was that they make 15. And they didn't, because they just said, well, we don't want to fund it that way. You know, they came in and said, and you should make 16, you should make 17, and so they spent, Monroe County spent, I think, 150,000 on their whole thing, and said, we're not gonna.
And I'm not, again, I'm just, where do things stand?
Yeah.
That's all I was looking for, and I had
So-
forgotten about the 5%,
Yeah.
3%. What all I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So,
And then like, as a board, when I started, I think it was 450. And I'm like, why do I keep getting more money? So this year I said, Bob, I don't want anything more. And so the board agreed that we're not taking any increase.
we've done
Because,
the same.
we're like, why do we need to have anything more?
Well, we're getting pretty close to your requested amendment. I guess the only thing I would ask is that we have a look at this fund balance to know what if any we can use for,
So the only thing that we have in trust is about 9,500. From that is bequests that has to be used for programming.
okay.
Bob
That
calls
leaves
it,
about 148,000 per our bookkeeping, that'll be the end fund.
and I don't know enough about the financing. I don't know how Bob says savings. I think what it is when you take the money and put it in, he uses that and says, this is how
Yeah,
we want to pay our bills, or
yeah.
move this from that to pay our bills.
All right, but I think that, okay, so I think that's a conversation that needs to be had then, because I think there might be some money we can put to work there. So that might be able to, it might be able to help you fulfill your budget, your budget desires for 2023-24. So, all right, anything else for library at the moment?
And I'm gonna leave because I'm tired.
Thank you.
So,
3 AM, we appreciate you coming.
so,
Thanks, Greg, thanks for being here. ARPA. When do we vote on the budget? Is it August or sorry, September or October?
I've got it on the agenda for September 11th. It goes into effect October 1, so you have to adopt it before that.
Okay.
And that gives us a backup week of the 25th if
Correct.
there's real issues.
How quickly do you think we can look into that library fund? To get an accurate understanding, if we can apply some of their fund balance to their current.
And to make sure there's not something else.
Yeah, I mean, I'll,
Separate
so I don't want to answer, because I will have to get that, and as soon as Bob sends me that information, it won't take long for me to
Okay.
do the calculation, so I'll reach out to him tomorrow and make myself a note.
Yeah.
To
So I'm
get any of
thinking- I'm
his
thinking
restricted.
if we can't fund their request, they've got a fund balance that should be.
Mhm.
Well, when
And I know they want to reserve, I get.
Or
that.
it's up to them, maybe they don't go 5%, maybe they go
Yes,
2 or 3, and then they'll have to make it work.
well, if we can't fund the request, they could potentially use those funds.
Because all we have to worry about is the appropriations, not, we don't care necessarily where they, what,
That's their fund balance for them to use, right? So, I mean, that could be part of the explanation if we come up short tonight. All right, moving along, ARPA.
So I have this budgeted to fully expend, this may change depending on what happens, but we're already, you guys approved the engineering for the water line, we talked about this yesterday, the arch bridge cap, if there's anything extra, we'll discuss, but if you have questions there, let me know. There's obviously we've already revenued this in, so it's just the expenditures. Bridge is a debt fund, so we have our millage information there with interest and our payment, that's pretty set.
And that's the Arch Bridge.
Yes,
And
and I'll have a debt summary, so I don't know if you guys recall when you got your budget books, I had a debt summary page for you, you'll have that again. That'll list out the payment, the year that it's final, all of that. Moving on, pool, exact same thing, it's the debt fund. You guys have questions there?
when's it paid off?
2000, between 2028. So this is the one,
Oh, is that big? There's a lot of belly flops between now and then there.
so this is the
Yeah, right
one,
there.
that has a situation, and we can't pay on the
We cannot pay that off, right?
We can't, if we make it, we shut it down, we can see that,
Right. So,
Okay,
do a little belly flop.
Municipal building debt fund is the payment for the village office. So it's same thing, I mean, these are pretty set, we have to make our loan payments.
Yeah.
Franklin, same thing, I mean, I guess we don't have to, but I would definitely recommend we do. So Parks and Rec is the next budget, if you guys are good with those debt funds. So Parks and Rec,
yeah,
what do I say about Parks and Rec?
it's gonna get better.
I'm gonna be very honest with you guys, I am not 100% comfortable with this budget. I am really struggling because it's been really all over the place in the past. And it's just hard to budget. I am working on that. Like, especially with me doing some of the fall programs and like building in what our costs are every year. And then I'm working on trying to get the village into a habit of, whatever program, instead of waiting 5 years and buying everything all at once, maybe buy 3 of something every year and have it replaced on a rotation. So with that being said, I think this is a good budget that we're recommending to you guys. There may be changes to it.
Are you a little rich on the coordinator wages.
Yes,
Yeah, 9 hours, that's-
so we budgeted the court, and again, this is, it's difficult because I don't know. We're switching to an hourly, or we're proposing to, and I met with Parks and Rec position for this, and we don't know if they'll start implementing new programs, I'm not sure. But yes, I do think that we're probably a little bit heavy on the wages side.
Okay.
So with this budget that's being presented, we would go into our fund balance. I'm hoping that ends up being not the case, but potentially we've got some money there to do that. But if you guys have questions about this, let me know.
I'm gonna ask that we back down wage back down to 10,500.
Let's tell what you want, your Jason,
What's that?
what's sell?
I-46.
like, direct coordinator wage.
I see.
And I'm gonna make a recommendation that, as the coordinator gets up and running with the board, that they know there's a cap. And it's gonna be up into this amount.
Okay.
What was it?
And
What-
then if there's, then we could revisit that. You see what I'm saying?
I do say it again, though.
So, I-46, I'm gonna ask that we back that down from 15,1 to 10,5. And then,
Okay,
and
gotcha.
then when we do start with the coordinator, new coordinator, we basically let them know it's up into those billable hours. So
Understand.
whatever
Okay.
those hours are divided by
I don't
14.
think we discussed, I don't think we said about the, we didn't get, because we, that part wasn't discussed as part of the cap, if you will,
Yeah.
like the 10-5. But I hear where you're coming from,
Well, and if things are going really well and we want to revisit that, I think.
because we can amend that as if,
Sure,
so if programs come on, as Danielle was talking about,
and they're successful and everything's going
and we
great,
can pull in some more money.
and Parks and Rec board thinks it's going great, and we revisit that.
They give him 10 hours a week to. At the new rate. If I'm reading that right.
What do you think about that, Danielle?
Parks and
I
Rec
had-
board
I
is
would-
19, right?
Okay, 10-5? With the 10 hours a week, because we even talked about that.
Yeah,
How come we?
and I definitely agree that we over budgeted that because
You're.
we were trying to factor in that it might take them a little bit longer the first year to kind of get an understanding and everything going. We were hopeful that they were gonna feel energetic and want to do new programs, but I have no problem decreasing this. And like you guys said, if we do add things and we need to revisit that, then we
Okay.
can.
10 hours a week gonna be enough,
I think that
roughly.
when we talk about it, fall time, they're gonna go crazy hours. Then, once things settle down, it's gonna be a 5
It's
hour
gonna
time.
be a very, you're gonna see these
Flux.
peaks and valleys because they'll, like she said, fall super busy and then it's gonna drop off and then there'll be a little spike around the holidays because we do our tree event, which is mostly volunteer at this point, so they have pretty minimal. And then you'll see it'll kind of balance out, and then spring, it'll jump up for our spring programs. And then it'll kind of level off through summer and then spike back up.
Play devil's advocate, what if we get somebody in that's really wants to get some winter programming going?
That's where hopefully the money's raised from that
Okay.
event, that program.
So-
Well,
And we're
I
gonna
would-
talk
I would
about,
make the suggestion that hourly is scaled back as well.
we're going to talk about this next week, but Parks and Rec is recommending that all of the programming go through them too. So if this coordinator wants to add something, they're gonna have to go to the board and say, like, these are my projected revenues, expenditures, and the board's gonna have to say, yeah, let's do this. So that it's kind of that extra layer of checks and balances, so we don't get into these loss situations.
Yeah.
The wage, I'm not ignoring you on that, James. I hope you know that. We want to talk about that, that's fine, that's coming right from that at a time and mill recommendation.
Yeah. I understand that. I'm wondering if that's a full-time coordinator.
It may be, I would be
I
very,
think a part-time coordinator at $15 an hour is still a pretty worthy job. And that's averaging 14 hours a week over a week here.
I'd be very hesitant to pull out individual things from this. I think you need to do all or nothing, or we're gonna get ourselves in bind.
You're talking
And you
three,
can,
From the MML,
yeah, and we can, I mean, if you wanna talk about that, you guys don't wanna do that, that's fine, but I. Based on their recommendation, like even if that's full-time, they're only working part-time hours. And they're not getting the benefits, so I don't know. And ultimately, it's up to you guys.
Would the pool still fall under this potential parks there?
No,
So that'd be a bump of roughly $2,500 if I remember right. From what the original Parks and Rec coordinator was making was like 7,500 roughly. When we added the pool to it, it jumped up to around 13 or 14.
1380.
So if we go back to 10, which I'm not opposed to, that's still a $3,000, $2,500 bump from 3 years ago.
At that rate though.
Correct.
And isn't the push to go for more volunteers and more parents, more whatever, and more of the pay to play, right? I mean, that's what we're kind of aiming for and try to back off on. The coordinator is doing the stuff in-house and whatnot. but they're not-
Scheduling, getting umpires and referees.
The Parks and Rec team, the board has said we need to do more. We've advocated to do more, yes.
Well, true coordinator's position. So just
Exactly, that's
like,
not a-
look what Don Chappius has been able to accomplish with pickleball. Just by just having the coordinator by the nets. And then sort of started grassroots. It's taken off from there, so.
Teaching.
So if we set this at 10-5 and we say, okay, you only work 10 hours a week, or somehow over 52 weeks determine how many hours a week you can work. Or are we saying that, well, we need more time out of this director, so we need to bump up their budget for their.
Well, I think that would be Parks and Rec, right? So I think we set it at 10-5, Parks and Rec manages it, and if they need more because their director is going above and beyond, or doing a great job, or things are expanding, then they can come back to us and we can raise the budget.
Well, who determines though that they need to work more hours? Because Parks and Rec says that they want to help. So we can set it at, let's say. 500 hours, whatever. Once, then they just average that out per week. If they need more help, Parks and Rec joins in and volunteers their time to make that happen, so we can stay within the budget.
To not go above the 10-5.
Correct.
But there's gonna be a lot of weeks where they aren't gonna work.
Exactly. That don't have.
Well, who
That's
determines
right.
that though? That's what I'm saying.
It's based on programming, I believe.
No one in particular.
Yeah, it's not hourly, it's as needed, right, which is what would hopefully be understood.
Yeah.
So the Parks and Rec Board, the way that they're proposing it, I don't know if this will help, hopefully, Tim,
Okay.
is that they would oversee the programming. So if the director or the program coordinator wants to make changes, so add, remove, change the programming, it would go to the advisory board. The advisory board is just that, though. They're an advisory board to the council. So if you guys set the budget at 10-5, they have to work within that unless they come to you and say, we are requesting and recommending an amendment to our budget, which you guys would have to approve.
He would like to do this program, or she, this program, this program. We're asking for, $2,000 more.
Well, and the Park and Rec Board says, yes, we agree with this new programming.
Correct.
So we
Right,
need
but
to
if
have-
it's outside of
If
the.
it's outside that, then
So either the Parks and Rec Board is gonna say, we agree with this programming, but we've gotta go get a budget amendment, or we agree with this programming, it's built within your allotted budget, or hey, we're not gonna ask for more money from council because that's just not gonna work, or whatever it is, because they're advisory to council.
Okay. Well, so if we say we want to put that hourly wage at 15, I think you said that, well, we're not gonna piecemeal it. It's either what is before us or it's all at 3%.
So I was talking about the wage study, what I said.
Well, yes, yeah.
Yeah, I would be hesitant, so you guys can set, because this is a part-time position, what the wage is here.
Mhm.
What our total amount here, what I would caution you guys not to do. Is extrapolate individual employees from the salary study. Itself, like, and I'm not, again, you guys can adopt this or not, but I would not recommend that you pick and choose who you adopt this for.
so that's why you're saying So for the parks person, let's not deviate from what's presented.
I have a question. Cause it's gonna go right along with the Parks and Rec program coordinator. Our summer hires for DPW, where do they fall into this wage scheme? As an operator?
No, so they're not actually listed on our wage scale on here. Right now, they're at 14, right?
Same with lifeguards and whatnot. I mean, it's the
all
temporary
that
seasonal employees are.
Pool managers,
Those are all the same.
No, they are
Temporary
different.
seasonals.
And I can add those as like a seasonal subcategory here, because we did not include them in the salary study, and that's why they're not listed here.
But really, the Parks and Rec director coordinator works year round, but doesn't work all the time year round, so.
Yeah, those same amount of hours every single week. They're
Right,
really different.
that sounded goofy, I know, but
Yeah.
you know, they might work August, September, October. And then again for Christmas time, and then have a couple months off, January, February, and then they're gearing up for spring sports, so.
right?
I just think if you want to attract someone who's a good caliber and, you know, wants to work at a job that's part-time while they're working a full-time job or whatever else, I think we need to leave it right there.
Well, and two, just because MML says this is what we recommend, that doesn't mean we have to take that recommendation.
Can we talk about that part of this wage scale in just a few and just finish up with the Parks and Rec? Because I know that's gonna be a big discussion.
All right, so what was it, 15?
I got it at 10.5.
What was it prior to 15.1 or 10.5? Is there any more discussion on that? All right,
Any other questions regarding Parks and Rec?
that's still 525 hours at $20 an hour, so it's still a lot of hours. No, it looks good. Moving on. Sewer.
So we have revenues appear to decrease, and that's because of the proceeds from the bonds. I've got that highlighted red there just because I'll make sure before it's submitted that number is not changed at all. I don't think it should, but that would be the last of the proceeds from them. Council, there's a $10 decrease there. Pretty minor. Administrator, there is a bump here, the wages and benefits, and then there's $500 for workshops and conferences. Administrative assistant, this is actually a decrease by about 5,000
What was your 182 at the beginning of the proceeds from sale of bonds?
I'm sorry, that's the USDA loan.
Okay, and that's gonna be that,
So I have
that's
to,
our minimal payment for your.
so that's not our payment, that's the proceeds. So when we submit a pay application for the contractor, they send us the payment amount and we have to record that as a revenue and then we expense it out under expenditures because we have to track that incoming loan money coming, and they don't pay it like all up front. They pay it as the contractor.
That's just like the final.
Correct, that's right. And I, like, it's just highlighted red just because I wanted to remind myself to go back and confirm that number is not changed at all. So clerk.
Your transfers out are collecting or back again, repaying the debt that we had transferred a few years.
Yes, so we've got that, the 40,000, is that what you're referring to? Yes, that's that final payment to general. So you'll see this in water and sewer, and like we said yesterday, that's the last. Water and sewer will have completely repaid all of general fund loans. So next year, general fund revenues will decrease by $80,000, which will be good for water and sewer because they'll be making some progress on those. No, I mean, really, so. We've got all of our operating, our loan payments, attorney services is bumped up here. We all know because of the wastewater treatment project. The sewer department, again, the red highlights, that number is the expenditure portion from the bond proceeds, so those will match. It's again, just red so that I know to remember to go back and just double check that number. So we have. If we look at the capital projects, SCADA, you guys approved, they actually were out last week. I don't think that we'll have that expended in this fiscal year. So I'm just requesting that you guys, we carry it forward. So I've already put that in because you guys have awarded that project. And then I did put, I've got the two highlighted. So they're asking for $10,000 for the handrail replacement, the oxidation ditches. So under the wastewater treatment plant upgrades, there's a lot of portion, you guys will see this in September when we do the tour. There's a lot of portions of the handrails that were replaced, but some of the areas that weren't upgraded still have the old handrails. And at the base where they're tied into the concrete, they're starting to break off, and we want to re-weld those and then or have somebody come in and re-weld those, and then we would just repaint them, just spruce them up. So otherwise, other than the bottom part of it, they're in pretty good shape. So that's what the 10,000 is for. And then they're requesting the $25,000 for a tractor out there to do mowing and things like that. I will tell you that DPW is in need of a tractor as well. And my idea, and we kind of talked about this last year, is that DPW get a new tractor and then wastewater take DPW's old tractor because they use it much less. And you'll see this when we get to motor vehicle, but based on the needs for equipment, we would not be able to fund that tractor this year. So for DPW, so I don't know if we want to go ahead and get something for wastewater or not. But and I know I'm kind of jumping there, but I want to make sure you guys know that. And then they share this fund with the sewer collection, which is below. So we need to make sure to factor in their capital requests below as well. And when it's kind of like general fund where they've got the multiple. And we've got 423,000 requested for mains, meters, and manholes. And this is coming right from the capital improvement plan. And I know I sent this to you guys, it's been a little bit, but if you recall at the beginning, it identifies what our total replacement cost is, and it extrapolates that out for the useful life and says, this is the amount we should be investing every year to keep up on it. And then there's some carry forward items there as well that you are not required to fully fund, but if you maintain a 6-month reserve in this fund, you're looking at an available capital project funding of $587,261.
If we fund all the highlighted yellows, we still have a surplus of 129,261. Do we have somewhere to store the tractor?
At the wastewater treatment plant, we will when we get things cleaned up and organized. They're still working on that. They've made a ton of progress.
That would be my only concern.
Is the John Deere still?
There's already one there, right? That they use.
They borrow
They
DPWs
just borrow.
currently, yes.
I thought there was a John Deere in
I thought
there.
there was too.
They use DPWs, I'm not sure if it was the contractors or I'm not sure.
They're not a front end load with a front end
Yeah.
loader or something.
Yeah.
Mm,
Can
What
I,
all would they do with the tractor? Snow removal,
Mowing,
mowing?
Would they do snow removal, or does DPW go back through there and plow that?
they would do snow removal. And occasionally, maybe if they needed to move a part or something, but that would be pretty minimal. They don't typically do it. And that's why my initial recommendation was that they get
That'll be done.
right, and DPW get the new one. But again, when we get to motor vehicle, you'll see that we have some needs there, and I talked to Brent that he is saying are higher than the tractor need.
Could we go ahead and get the tractor for wastewater treatment plant, and then they swap, you know, you want to swap with DPW to wastewater treatment, could we wastewater treatment and then swap to DPW?
So sewer is an enterprise fund, so it should
No,
pay
I'm not talking,
towards,
not talking about the money, I'm talking about the tractor itself.
Well,
You
to
see what I'm
Glenn's
saying?
point, can sewer lease it to DPW?
Is that the right word I want to use? Okay,
Because it's an enterprise fund.
I see what you're saying, I'm just,
Sewer would have to own it, but
I mean,
if
sewer-
DPW want to use it, they can lease it.
yes, okay, yes, that's what I'm trying to say.
yeah, it would have to pay, that's what I was gonna say, is you can't, because it's an enterprise fund,
So they can't,
right?
I hear what you're saying.
So what you could do is, you could also, like, let's say DPW bought a new tractor. Sewer could pay for the, like, whatever the value of the old tractor is to help offset that cost, because then they're taking it over. But it can't fund something that then is used in a different.
Okay,
Now, if DPW uses that tractor for a sewer main replacement, they're fine, because it's sewer. But they're not going to, but.
I thought they had a front end loader on that one, and that's my only fear, because why would we hand down the old John Deere that they have doesn't have a loader, right? And secondly, if those guys are out there mowing at their wage, we know what the overhead and the rental for all this equipment is. It would it be cheaper to just farm it out and say, have a contractor come in and mow, if any sort of grass company come in and mow the thing and peace out. It's always more expensive when we do it in-house. Because we're paying for the equipment, we're paying for the employee.
Yep.
We're reimbursing.
that's not a bad,
ourselves.
that's different thought.
I just feel like those guys shouldn't have to be out there plowing, those guys shouldn't have to be mowing, those guys, you know. Their job is to run the sewer plant.
We hire a seasonal grass mower, don't we?
Yeah, like
DPW.
this year we didn't get one. It's just hard to find people that want to work seasonally.
Well, let's not fund the tractor and we can discuss it if the need arises. We can always make that amendment. We know we have the funds available. So if the old tractor ceases to run or we can't secure mowing, we need to, we can provide them with a new tractor, so we can definitely offer a solution down the road.
So the only thing I would ask, if you guys could maybe consider, if we want to look at like an outside contract or somebody to come mow, maybe putting some money in outside contractor for that, or do you want to wait and we can bring that information back? Because you do have the ability to do an amendment as well, and it would just come from that fund balance, which is over the 6 month reserve. So that it's completely up to you guys, but just throwing that out there as an option.
Yeah, again, without any quotes, it's hard to even begin to. And if it's something along the lines of $25,000 for the season to maintain that property.
They would be that much.
Yeah,
Commercial mowing.
commercial mowing sheet, it's getting way expensive.
Really?
Yeah.
How about their mold for you? Just like I pick up the garbage, Mike.
Just, can you refresh me on the chopper pumps that are carrying forward those for the Beagle Road lift station? That's not because of Blissfield place diapers and that sort of thing, is that correct? Is that replaced, is that a maintained?
It's just, we're like maintenance, routine kind of replacement of those. And that's being carried forward just because we had a lot of projects and did not get to a couple of them with DPW.
And the vac truck is not in our motor vehicle fund? That's
We
sewer.
did it water and sewer and we did it that way because it was gonna be used for like the lead service line replacements, and it was going to be used for the water and sewer infrastructure, like if we had to do hydro excavations to dig those lines up and things like that, or if we had to jet out sewer lines.
Literally for everything, sewer and water.
Yeah. It really, a lot of sewer, but definitely water as well.
Okay, so it's still used by DPW, but it's used for water and sewer.
Correct, yes.
Got it. All right,
Okay, any other sewer questions?
we carrying that 423 over?
I put that in there, yes.
Okay, so we have 0 for the 25 and everything else.
Yeah, I put that in the 10,000 for the handrails.
Great.
And that again leaves us over assessment.
How does that relate to, okay, again. We want to explain to the public, we want the public to understand, so we've got the loan, the USDA loan, sorry. And we have to have a specific fund or amount set aside for every year, plus 10%, right, for new projects. So again, I don't want the public to think that we're sitting on funds, or why are the rates so high? You know, when we have the stuff, we have to present this information to them so that they can make a accurate judgment on why we're charging what we are and where we're at.
The lab.
I just wanted to be, you know, transparent on this stuff, because if somebody's gonna say, well, why do you have 6 months reserve? Why are my rates so high? You know, again, we can explain by our loan requirements, we have to do this. We're setting aside rainy day funds for future infrastructure, and we have to have some sort of you know, money set aside for some sort of catastrophe. So again, it's not that we can drop rates, it's not that we can't just sit on rates, but we have to explain why we're where we're at. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there, or misunderstood why we're where we're at, and I think we can help clarify that. It will help us and help people understand before they just jump to conclusion.
And the other thing to keep in mind is that if you look at our capital improvement plan, just for sewer, which is only 6 years out, just for the sewer portion, we're looking at needing $4.2 million for infrastructure replacement, because a lot of our infrastructure is aged really out to the maximum too. So that, like, while we might not spend it this year, some of these projects, we're gonna have to build that balance up to pay for them. So it is 6 minutes to 9. Do we want to stop here
What do we got?
No, keep going.
or?
Well, we've got
Water and motor vehicle and drug.
Motor vehicle fund, drug forfeiture.
and then the library. We've got water, motor vehicle.
Training's cut and dry.
Yeah, so the drug forfeiture and the training should be, because that's the training funds, that's the new one I talked about yesterday that we pulled from general, and that's the track. The drug forfeiture, there's $93, we're not proposing to spend that. If we get money in, we'll look at that, but it'd be an amendment with you guys, and those are, if we were to bring those in, it's specific. So then really you have water and motor vehicle left. Motor vehicle, I feel really good with my recommendation. You guys could of course change it, and then water is you're gonna have some discussion there.
Well, all right,
Regarding-
let's do the easy one, motor vehicles. You've got a 0 turn and a street sweeper.
Yeah, so there's 4 requested items there, and we can only afford the 2. The only thing I will add about this is that if you guys do approve to fund the street sweeper, Brent and I were talking about, we would like the village, or we would get the information, but share it with you guys, is consider maybe doing a lease option. And if we were able to do a lease option, then we might come back to you and say, hey, this might be a better solution instead of paying for it all up front. And then if there's issues, they'll take care of the maintenance, things like that, and then we could potentially get that needed DPW tractor. But that would be something down, I don't have the information at this point, so I would just ask you to fund that, which is our biggest need.
That is a new street sweeper cost,
That is a
new to
used,
us, street sweeper
yes,
cost,
that would be a new to us.
but used.
Correct,
And that's not financed.
correct, and that's what I'm saying, we're gonna look at used, but I am going to look at doing like a lease option to see if that's gonna be more cost effective for us. I don't know if we've done that in the past, but they have municipal lease programs that are really fair and reasonable, where you'll pay like 5 years of payments, and then year 6, you can buy it for $1, or you can return it and get a new one. So we're gonna, and I'll have more information on that if this is approved, but I just want you guys to have a heads up that that'll be potentially changing or coming, more information to come.
So new zero turn and a street sweeper, anybody have any input?
What's up with the truck? We have the money for the
The other
truck.
pickup they want, right?
Yeah, so they really, I think, have one more that needs to be, and that would kind of get them up to
Right,
pretty
right.
good. But again, when I talked to Brent, I said, okay, we can't afford all 4 of these. What is our most critical?
Okay.
And most critical is that street sweeper, then the mower. So that's why we're recommending to fund those 2. So the DPW truck and the DPW tractor would carry forward into next year's request.
What you just said, sorry about that.
Okay, so I have one question. Sewer tractor was $25,000. DPW tractor 48.
It's a lot larger tractor that they need because of the work that they do.
Is
So they
that,
would
so
use it.
that hand-me-down tractor, is that even something that would be applicable to the sewer plant?
It is larger than what they need, but yes, it would be.
Do you have a current valuation of that tractor?
No, I do not.
Okay,
To see about a sale of it, you're saying, you're suggesting?
But
Yeah.
since you guys didn't fund that tractor, that again, depending what we do with the street sweeper, I will probably bring more information, because if we do that and we've got room to buy the tractor, then I'm gonna probably come to you guys and say, okay, here's the valuation. Sewer would pay this portion, motor vehicle can afford this, but I would bring that so you guys have everything all at once.
okay. All right, so, water.
Hold on, how do we build this motor vehicle fund? Do we charge more from each other entity to utilize those vehicles?
So the rental rates are set by the state of Michigan, and that's what we charge for them. So we can't charge more, like a higher rate. It's just based on where we use it. So we have been working really hard so we pulled the wages out. We're trying to pull out the non-equipment related items. So we were charging like auditing fees. We were, help me remember, what if everything that we pulled out, we were charging office supplies, website costs. So we've started pulling out those things that really shouldn't be in the motor vehicle fund to help so that we can get this built back up and get it back to where it should be, where it's replacing equipment. Because if you look at motor vehicle funds and any other community that does this, the only thing that's expensed out is the maintenance, fuel, and replacement, and that is it. And like, you'll see in this budget, we still have wages for DPW because they bill this out to anytime they work on a piece of equipment. No other community does that, but I don't want to hit the other budget. So if I take it out of here, then that means we're gonna have increased wages for DPW in general, water, sewer, wherever else. And I don't want to hit all of those really hard just to fix this one fund. So I've been trying to pull it out kind of in pieces.
It's a big chunk though.
Yes. And they were, so, and again, I talked, DPW is really good about when we communicate. So I talked to them about the health of this fund. So this year they really watched that, and you can see their projected wages are down a little bit, but I've left it there because if something breaks down, there's just that unknown, and their equipment is old. And they just make do with that stuff. And get through, but it does need a lot of maintenance.
Any other questions on motor vehicles? Is everyone comfortable on that?
No questions here.
Water?
So I'm just gonna focus on capital, but if you guys have other projects, let me know. So I've got the highlighted items that are the capital requests. There are some carry forward items here again that. You don't have to carry forward, but since you had approved them before, I kind of automatically put those in there. Nora is awesome and she's got her priorities numbered. So one is her top priority. If you see the little numbers off to the right of her highlighted items. And then up above in the.
Nice job, Nora. She was on there, she understood. Yeah, she done it. Nice job, Nora.
Yeah, up above, we have the 401,000 comes again from the capital improvement plan, which identifies how much we should be doing. I did make a note to the right there, so we approved for the engineers to design that water tower loop, which the engineer's estimate for that is 330,000. So if you guys want to budget something there, that the project's ready to go. It's literally just on hold due to funding. And then up above that is the meter items. I talked to Viola, and they you can do this a couple different ways. They offer a 0 interest program where you're required to have the larger down payment of 30% of year one, and then you split out the remaining payments equally for the next 5 years. So you would have 6 years of payments. So the first year would be 450,000, and then the next 5 would be 150,000. And that's why it lists that 450 there. The other option is that you can get a low interest like lease for the meters, but there is interest, and then you can go anywhere from 5 to 15 years on that. And I don't know what that annual fee would be until we wanted to look at that or not.
Does that include installation?
Yes. So their total cost on the high side was 1.5 million. And I don't know if you guys remember, we've had a lot going on the last couple of months. I had sent you guys their report, and it had 1.3 to 1.5. I based it on the high end of this. So kind of jumping back to the bottom, I did a couple options for you guys here. If you guys wanted to maintain the 6-month reserve, which is what we did in sewer and streets, you would have 399,887 available in capital. If you wanted to drop that down to a 3-month to get some projects done, you'd have 723,047. And then I did show you what a 1-month reserve is, just so you guys could see what that was, but I would not recommend it go below the 3.
This is another way of looking at it. If you commit to the 450, you're also committing to 150 for the next 5 years.
Correct.
You're committing to $750,000 over the next 5 years. So that's automatically budgeted. You're making that determination right now, as of today.
Gonna save in the long run though.
Yeah.
So,
And
this
we're-
was a big priorities.
Yep.
It is.
I'm just
No, you're making,
Yeah.
no, get it.
another way to look at it, right?
Yeah, and the other thing to keep in mind too, we don't have to go that route. We can just start replacing meters and keep reading. Regardless, we need to start replacing meters. So whether we do that, whether we wanna go to this automatic read, that's up to us. Again, I put the 450 as this is what it would be if we do the 0 interest option. For the next, and they can defer that initial payment for a year as well, so that you can start getting some of those revenues.
So
But-
one thing I will say is, Toledo has this project ongoing.
Mhm.
And they've been replacing a lot of main shut-off valves as well. So one thing they were running into is when they went to shut the house off, the main was not working. So it became a bit of an issue. They were charging the homeowner and then decided that they would then reimburse the homeowners that they had charged and pay for new main shut-offs. So just some hidden costs to think about.
I'm with the 450. If there's the meter replacement, do we do the meter maintenance as well then, Danielle?
That's if we go with Viola, that's their annual service.
Oh, that's part, they go together, and
Yes,
I misunderstood, okay, gotcha. Well, then, it would be the 50 then as well.
So really, you're at 200 then for the next 5 years,
Because of the 50 per year plus the 150.
plus the 150, so you're at 200 for the next.
well, the 50 would continue past the.
I know, but I'm just
Right,
saying for the
yeah.
next 5 years.
Yeah, $1 million.
Well, does that pay for itself then? Your quote 40 hours of a DPW employee walking the street, right, and
Yeah,
making
so
recording,
they
right, and
had,
entering the information, et cetera, so printing the bills, right, I mean. It needs to
and
be,
we would be able to be so much more proactive with that too, but they sent the return on investment for that.
Yeah, it's fairly
It's-
decent.
Not only that, but we're bringing up the guys to get other projects done that.
Yeah, you can't even quantify that.
Thought one benefit was that our aging meters didn't accurately track how much water was flowing through them.
Right.
So we know how much water we make and we know how much water we bill for, and there's a difference of 30%. So that's gonna be a savings or a benefit to us.
What's our aim with this fund balance?
So I showed you the 2 different options. I would recommend you not go below 3 months.
Okay.
But ultimately, again, that's up to you guys, but just if something did happen, infrastructure is expensive and.
So for this year, we wouldn't have to pay the 50, just the 450. Is that correct?
Because we don't pay that until it's completed, but I didn't know how long it would take, so I put it in there because I didn't know if it would fall into this budget year or not.
And then,
Or we elect it.
well, I'm just sort of going down Nora's list.
Right.
Looks like we could probably do,
Reliability study,
That needs to be,
that's number 1, isn't it?
yeah, I think so, yes.
and what is that gonna tell us?
It's required by Eagle. We've already got an extension on it. So it's supposed to tell us what our, and Nora can probably answer this so much better than I can, but what our, like what we can produce and sell or make, what our capacity is and where any deficiencies are. And I have talked to Riga about trying to see if they would be willing to include their system in this and partner on some of this cost. Or at least their portion of it, because since we do supply water to them, it would make sense to include them.
even if we budgeted for all of them, we'd still have more than 3 months. If we remove 4 and 5. And then that's just arbitrary because 6, 7, and 8 are combined 25,000. So just do a top 3. That puts us somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 months, 4.5 to 5 months of reserve.
And then you're not gonna fund anything up above. You know, do you wanna fund that in that water loop that's already designed and ready to go?
Well, I think the only way you get that done. It's the 450 or that,
I was just gonna say, it sounds like it's one or the other.
yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, you don't get the 450. And the 401.
And the generator for the water treatment plant. Request to replace that.
Yes.
I mean, that's not that old either, and because I bought that one back in the day, it's probably 10 years because we went with a diesel. Because of the.
Can I jump in, Danielle?
Gas is so expensive, is that, I mean, it's not that old of a generator, what is it, age or what, I guess, it's not.
Somebody thinks she wants to. jump
Okay,
in.
Nora, I have you unmuted.
Okay, so Mike, it's not a new generator. Our transfer switch is glitching basically. Sometimes our generator is running, but we don't get the power because the switch isn't working correctly. So I have to go flip the switch. So that 33,000 is for the maintenance of the generator and that transfer switch to make sure that it's doing that automatically by itself.
That's kind of critical.
Sometimes it does it, sometimes it doesn't.
Especially if there's no one there at night.
What's the time frame for that Nora, what's the time frame for that reliability study? Do we have a date that has to be completed by or something?
I got an extension for a year. We are down to like 3 or 4 months from that. But if I told them we started working on it, they would be okay. Jones and Henry said it would take them 6+ months to do the whole study. The reliability study goes through everything at the plant to the water getting to a house. So it's going to look at valves. It's going to look at the integrity of our system completely. What's happening to that water drop when it leaves the water plant to going to your home, to your faucet. So that's why we wanted to include RIGA, since we do have sometimes some issues there. So I can see everything that the water's going through, and kind of gives us that, how long do we have water in the system sitting? How much water do we have on hand? It goes through a lot of different things. It's not just infrastructure. It goes through everything, like I said, from the plant to your tap. So
Wouldn't that be paid for then by the water rates? So how would you ask for RIGA for like another percentage on top of that? Because the water rates pay for everything, right? So how do we ask them for more on top of that if we're already paying for that out of what we set the rates at?
For
For the reliability.
because that it's like extra, they'll have all that information and that data too to help improve or do whatever they want with their system. Is why. So
Are we double dipping on that?
we wouldn't include their system. We're asking if they would save money by us doing the reliability study together. So that's what we were trying to do, is partner with them, because if they just go out and do a reliability study on their own, they're gonna pay $20,000+. So we're saying, instead of you guys paying $20,000, why don't we include your system and you pay this portion?
Because we wouldn't get an accurate study anyway without utilizing their system, because we provide so much more out of that system, so.
Well, I say we just agree to fund that.
The
The
reliability.
reliability study.
1, 2, 3, 6, 7, and 8. I think are super doable. That comes to 123,500. Then we either choose the 401 or the 450.
And the 401 can really be 330 is what I would recommend there. If you do the 330,
We can actually do all of Nora's requests 1 through 8.
I would recommend that you budget something for meters.
Well,
And then if you want to do Nora, or you can actually probably do Nora's request and budget something if you take it down to the 3 months, because right now you've got 269, 547 available, because we have, our
5.5 months.
But if we just replace a couple of meters, even if it's what, 10 a year, we're literally just gonna jump them if we go with the new system, right? Then we're just
what was it?
basing those.
What was the payment? You said we could wait a year on the payment. For the meter replacement lease program.
So they said that they could push that payment out a year from the start of the project, which is and the reason they do that is because it takes about a year to get it completed. But if we, I mean, then you're committing that next year you will pay $450,000 for the, if you do the no interest option.
Right.
That you'll pay that next year. So we would be starting the project without the funding.
So we could budget 250 out of the 450 this year. We could budget the 3,000 or 300,000 30.
And then implement the meter replacement in 25.
Or we could even start it
or 22, yeah.
and then we'll have to budget the remaining 200,000 next year.
Oh, that we can get started.
Which will be similar to the payment.
Right, give us a little prepared.
So you're basically, we're going now from 6-year to a 7-year. If that makes sense to everyone? Yeah, that's all we're really doing. You with me on that? All right. So 250, 330, 1 through 8. Leaves us, no, we can't get 1 through 8.
How much are we over?
So that would leave you 19,547.
We can do 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8. Nora, are you still there?
Yes.
Reliability study, intake inspection, generator, lab fridge, SCADA upgrades, and leak detection. That would leave out the filter room air unit and the raw pump rebuild. Is there anything you'd want to shift around?
Let me look at totals here real quick. The SCADA is only 9,000. No, that would be sufficient.
Okay. I mean, we could not do the generator, the lab fridge, the SCADA upgrades, and the leak detection, and actually do the filter room air unit.
I think the generators
Needs
pretty
it,
critical. If we have a power outage,
yeah.
we're gonna need that, especially if they're not there in the overnight hours.
Good point.
Yeah. Sorry, we can't do it all.
That's okay. Thank you.
Thanks for your time being on.
No problem.
Now, I'm gonna make one more suggestion. We can go from 250 to 200. Which pushes the payment to 250 next year and get this filter room air unit done, or she can choose the raw pump rebuild.
It's got the filters higher by 1.
Yeah. Are either of those systems critical, Nora, the filter room air unit or the raw pump rebuild?
So the filter room air unit, it's just kind of at 23 years now, it's nickel and diming us. We've had to change some motors on it almost every winter. And then the the raw pump rebuild, that's something that we've cycled through the last couple years, just rebuilding one. I have not had one rebuilt in the last 4 to 5 years. I don't see any issue with them right now. It's just kind of a maintenance upkeep for the shafts and everything. So if I had to do one of the two, I would probably lean towards the air unit first.
Okay. All right, so there it is. There's that additional option.
We're going 200 then,
Yeah. So that would change our payment for next year to 250.
but it will at least allow us to get the project started.
Gets it started. Leaves us, so
I just had okay, when it comes to the lease payment, consider split the cost of the meter lease. Because technically it does, we don't, but it goes through there. Because we
Actually,
actually,
really
if
good
you go down,
Because
Yeah.
we do our meter, our sewer billing is through the meters as well, because it's based on usage.
and we have $150 net in the sewers.
Nice job.
You just 229.
well, I'd do 125.
Because that's half of 450.
So if you do 125 and you add another line item for another one on sewer for 125. You still keep that 6-month reserve.
So you have,
So it's the same game plan as 250 this year, 200 for the next 6 years. Start the project now, delay the first payment by a year.
you only want to do 125 in sewer.
Well, I do 125 in both.
I think that would be fair because it's happening now, the change is happening now. I mean. And then that way it would be easier for us to make the payment of 75. That would be just fun.
Meter replacement program.
It's up to you guys, but I guess if you want to do that, I would just leave it at the 200 because you got to think next year you're gonna have that maintenance fee too. So then that's gonna help next year because and I rounded up. I don't remember the exact number. I think it's a little bit less than that, but if you leave it at the 200 and the 125. Otherwise, you're dropping it down 75,000, but then you're adding the 50 next year in addition to the payment. And that still leaves you in water. So Nora gets all, I say Nora, but water treatment gets all of their projects except for that raw pump rebuild. And then that leaves you just over a 3-month fund balance reserve there.
All right, hold on a second. You want how 200?
Yeah, for the meters.
200 from both water and sewer?
No, just 200 from water and 125 from sewer. And really, I think you could bump sewer I'd leave it there. So you could bump sewer to 150 if you wanted.
Because the maintenance will split half and half too, right? In
Yeah.
the future, the 25,
Yeah,
25.
that's a good point. Yes, it would.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, I just,
Keep all things equal.
right, my hesitation in lowering it is I just don't wanna save now to pay later. I was just kind of think it would make it a little bit more even is kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, I don't,
Cause right now you've got, in sewer, there's a 6-month reserve plus an additional 29,261. So I mean, even if you said we're gonna bump that up to instead of 125 to 200 to match there, you're looking at just, I mean, it's about a 5.5 month reserve, you dip in a half month. So then you've got 200,000 in sewer. And then 200,000, which is almost your 450 initial payment. So then next year, you're gonna pay your 200,000 and the 50. So you're looking at 300 next year instead of having that be higher, and then it will be to the 200. That's what I would do, I guess, but up to you guys, but.
no, I don't think your numbers are right. If we do 125. Out of each fund, that's $250,000.
Right, I'm saying to do 200 out of each fund.
Right, but so if we do 125, that's 250 out of the 450. Next year, we do the same. 125, which is 100 out of each fund plus 25 out of each fund for the maintenance contract. Right?
Yeah, but I'm saying this year do 200 from each fund.
Gene, this can't, this can be.
No, like this upcoming, the one we're working on right now, instead of doing 125 from each. Because then I'm saying we're only short 50,000 that we have to add to next year. So then next year we're paying 250 between the two funds, so we're paying a little bit more upfront now instead of deferring it.
Oh, so you're gonna want to push it out another year.
No,
I'm okay with that because
I'm saying,
I'm okay with that. And I'll tell you why we're not actually spending money.
Take half of it out now or over half. of it
right, but we're just, so that leaves
And
you,
then take
So we're now
out next year.
we're underfunded.
We're
We're under that 6-month reserve.
Right.
by half, yeah, you're 5.5.
But it's still safe, it's just holding this. over.
Correct.
It's
It's just
still-
letting
Yeah, we're not spending.
that we're going
It's
to
a-
use
it's
it.
based on-
Yeah, so I'm okay with that. We're not spending any money. Is everybody on the same page?
Yep.
Okay.
Are you good?
Yeah, she does.
Okay.
I didn't know that we could generate a payment, so how the convince you to me.
Okay.
All right, so Nora gets 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, and 8. She doesn't get 5. She doesn't get a raw pump rebuild.
Correct.
If we did less, we could do that on.
Or you add
But
the,
the loop,
let's say you add that,
no, I think we can get the loop in.
you're dropping down, you would be at about 2.7 months of fund balance if you wanted to fund the raw pump rebuild.
So here's the thing, if the raw pump goes down, we actually have not spent the money for the meters, so it's
And we
there.
reallocate.
It's there for us, so I say we try to ride it when we're here. And sort of prove what we've done there.
So don't put the raw pump rebuild in there.
No,
Okay.
no. Everything else seems a little more critical.
Okay, so the only thing that you guys have left, if you want to do this tomorrow or tonight, is the wage information.
Do it both tomorrow. I'll forget it tonight.
Very well. I got a few things real. With 223 trees, lights just popped up, so Rotary's gonna fund the trees, right? It'd be, and the lights are in the capital improvement plan. Is that anywhere in this budget, or is that?
I don't have the lights in capital. Is the village paying for that or? correct? That's not an EDA,
Yeah,
or is that? I'm not
well, I
sure.
thought we had. Put that in this year's budget, but so there's a couple others, but. It's.
Like the current of year we're
Yeah,
in.
yeah.
I don't recall that being there, but I can. Double check.
I thought we requested that, and then the other one is this. When we're talking sidewalks, whatnot, these railroad crossings that we paid for, like. How, like when it's talking about Fox Hill and whatnot, these things are like 10,000 a piece. If we can get DPW out there or whatever, just to seal them and be enclosed, seal that asphalt, or. Some idiot with a bucket and a mop will go out there and do it, if you guys buy the stuff, because I don't wanna rebuild these at $10,000 if we can seal them. But are they? Just the sidewalk crossings, like if
So
you
the
go out by
railroad,
the liquor store, they just
doesn't
need to be sealed.
want us on their right of way at all.
Well,
I
I mean, we have to
mean,
maintain that stuff.
they are supposed to maintain that within their right of
Didn't
way.
they pay for the ones at Lane Street?
Yes, so they did Lane, they were, and I can reach out to Chris again.
Okay. Cause
Because
we
they
paid
were
for all
gonna
the other
do
ones.
gypsum this year, and he did say it was gonna be towards the end of the summer, I have not heard anything on that.
I just don't wanna lose that asphalt base in there, because then we're paying, when we can go in there and seal those. For much cheaper, it's literally an hour's worth of DPW work or anybody's work, I don't wanna rebuild them.
Do we ask for forgiveness and not for permission?
I mean, if they're gonna maintain them from here on out, fine, because. Well, we're the ones that had to pay for those installated prior to.
Yeah, I
Prior
know,
to the North Lane,
at least in my time in,
we paid for the North Lane one, because we took that out of DEA to finish all the path to the depot.
so we paid for the sidewalk, they did the sidewalk in the right of way, we did the sidewalk outside of it because it was like going nowhere.
Just to catch
And that
up.
came out of our major streets, fund there. But the actual like pavement within the track and in
They
the
paid for
street and
themselves.
right outside of it and right away, they paid for all of that. And when I talked to Chris at the beginning of summer, he had indicated that gypsum was gonna be done this year, because I talked to him about, I actually get complaints about Monroe being worse than gypsum, and I asked him what the plans was for Monroe, and at that time, he didn't have any repairs slated for Monroe until next year. I can reach out to him again, but that's the only reason we haven't done anything is since I've been here, they've been like, this is our right of way,
They
you
just
guys
said,
don't
"No,
go
it's
in
not."
it.
Yeah, because they didn't install all those other two,
And
we
we
had to
do
pay for the
have,
Franklin
we
Street.
gotta pay for the lights every year.
Right.
Based on, and if they upgrade their lights, then we
It's still-
pay a higher fee
Yeah.
for that, but. Yeah, I would say if they're gonna take that right away, it's their responsibility, if they don't want us in there, then that means you gotta fix this stuff.
Well, do we have any control over that then, I don't want to see any ever let it go to crap either. Where we have the same crossing. As the
Is that anything else gonna talk?
Yeah, I'll reach out to Chris and see what we can figure out there and. Maybe how we can work together.
Proactive about it.
Right.
It can't mean they don't wanna be proactive on it.
I think this,
The communication's not great.
Oh, really?
I mean,
It's better than it was, so.
yeah, it's. I'm not saying it's the worst thing ever, but it is challenging and it's hard because Chris is in Lansing. So he doesn't always even,
there was a different guy at the meeting with Kevin out at Ogden. His name was Chris. And he's the operations manager. He's out of Owasso. Where the home office is.
but is that a B?
It is,
Oh, it is?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so maybe I need,
Gives it
because
Kevin.
Chris is like the head guy, so I just go to him because he's usually the only one that responds to me.
Give it to Kevin.
I'll be
I
happy to reach out to
can't remember the guy's last name.
They were on the A and B on the Lansing and everything else.
Right. Okay, I'm saying farm services.
Can you check on those lights, though, the decorative lights, if we expand that or if we extend that where the trees are? Okay. And then my last thing before we talk, sorry, on wage, the amortization on our debt. Can we have that? So. At final budget time, or even for next year, say, okay, you know, we've got 30 years of wastewater treatment plants coming, you know, payments coming. We're finally paying off Franklin Street, you know, what other kind of debt we have and how we're paying off. And then we'll know how to start planning for
I
the
think that's
next
what-
portion of where we're at.
Danielle has said a few earlier about that, part of the packet.
Well, I gave you guys, and I was gonna do the same thing this year, it's a summary, so it lists each of the projects, it says what the principal and when it's expended, it's not an actual like amortization table, which I can provide for them. For you guys, I'll include that as kind of the cover page, and then those will be behind it.
Is everyone good with 308, 301 for the library?
Yeah, it's like, it's crystal clear what the intent and what the plan is, and the action has to be made.
I have a hard time with it without some commitment, honest answer. I do, and that's the only reason. So I don't want anybody to think that I'm not for the library. That's not it. It's just, we've got to have something in writing, a commitment, a handshake, something with attorneys, something to say, look, this is what's gonna happen first, this is what's gonna happen second. I don't want to be, I don't mean that in a mean way, I'm just saying so we can plan appropriately with the funds.
Support documentation.
Supporting documentation, Bill just said. That's because 365 days ago, we said we were not gonna do what we're doing right now. And I feel like we're going back on our word. And I'm not sure why the difference is today versus what it was last night. And that's, there has-
Yeah, up for discussion.
yeah, there just has to be a plan. There has to be a plan in place that is written. Maybe everybody signs it, says, yeah, this is what the game is.
I do want to share that Shelley called me, reached out today. And her and I had a conversation. I thought it was a really positive conversation. And she provided some of her feelings and thoughts on what was going on. She very, I think, understanding of the situation that we're in, and understands that we're trying to be responsible fiscally, trying to make sure that we maintain the services that we have. But some of the feedback, and I don't want to speak for her, but I did ask if I could share that we talked with you guys if it came up at all, and she was good with that. But she did share that and I don't disagree with her on this, that it is a two-way street. So we're asking for communication from them. We should be willing to provide it as well. And I think this goes back to, it would be really good if somebody did go to those board meetings. It can be me. I do a lot of meetings already. I would love for it not to be me. I don't know if there's a council member. I also would love to maybe we consider maybe it's not one person. Maybe we each take a quarter and we go once a quarter instead of monthly. I mean, I would rotate with somebody. I'm just throwing that out there, that I do think that was a valid point. And if we're feeling frustrated about communication and they are, then I think maybe we need to meet in the middle somewhere and find some common ground to help improve this relationship. Because again, we talked about it, like none of us are anti-library. We support the library. So somebody's got to maybe take that first step to say, let's bridge this gap and be better partners. And again, I'm willing to help with that. I would greatly appreciate you guys consider it not falling completely on me, but whatever I need to do to help, I will.
I guess my concern would be is being that we don't have any say per se of what they do during their mornings. The information flow that we would be able to provide may be limited. We would be there kind of as a open ears to hear what's going on, bring it back to this board if necessary, or at least update this board on what is going on.
And I think that's all we would do. We're not asking, I mean, it's an elected board, like, I don't think any of us should go there with the intention of acting or doing anything, but just being ears that can hear, or being also a resource for them. Like, maybe they have a question like related to budget or, and I know Bob has reached out to me a few weeks ago and said, hey, will you sit down and talk to me about what it would look like to do a district library budget? So I'll sit down with him, but I think it would be good too, if the library board has questions, what's the village doing, what's going on here, that somebody's there to maybe answer that. And maybe you just sit there and say nothing, but at least we're showing up and we're making our fair effort to doing, I mean, if we expect it from them, I think it makes sense that we would do the same.
I would be willing to step up and go to those meetings. I guess my concern would be, I'm not gonna answer something that I don't know. And I'll simply say that. If I don't know, I'll say, you know, I don't know about that, but I will get you an answer. So that may be bringing it back to this board at our regular meeting, or sending it out via email to the entire board, our whole board, at least to bounce ideas or say what, you know, somebody might, because somebody up here, I know, I mean, at least 5 of the 7 that are up here have at least a couple more years experience than I do. With the board, you know.
And I think that would be the best way, but then at least we know the question so that we can help you insert it.
I have a hard time accepting that position, to be quite honest with you. If you told me a year ago that we need to see progress or budgets were going to start being restricted, I'd make sure I had a representative here at least once a month, as does Parks and Rec, DDA. The sort of other major committees in this village have representation once a month and or provide a detailed report that we haven't seen for a year. So I have a hard time saying we need to extend an olive branch and visit them when for a full year they haven't come this way. So again, the olive branch, I get what you're trying to say. But we can't answer any questions, we can't make any decisions if we go there, all we can do is listen. But what we're asking for, what we've been asking for, is for them to come down and give us a report. Or keep us up to date somehow on the progress they're making towards the district.
And I agree with you, I have
So
had my share of
like,
frustration.
and Bob made a point last night that he's away from his family and he doesn't think he needs to be here, but I'm telling you, if my job was on the line. If funding was on the line, if my library was on the line, I might consider attending a meeting. Once a quarter, once a month, twice a year, I don't know. But 0 times, to me, shows lack of faith and effort on their part as well. So until I start seeing them at these meetings, I am not going to be going to those meetings.
And I don't disagree with you, James. My thought
I'm putting that out there for the board and for you and for the library.
is if we both keep digging our feet in, we're never gonna bridge that gap.
Well, that's exactly right.
I think we've made more progress this evening than we did last night.
Absolutely.
You know, Mr. Brown was pretty upfront with everything that
Sure.
he presented to us and answered our questions pretty well. And I'm not dissing Bob, you know, Bob is a different person. I wouldn't expect Bob to be Mr. Brown, but you know, we do have to consider that, you know, maybe we do need to step up a little bit. Put the best foot forward as much as we possibly can. Like I said, I don't think we can answer, obviously, we can't answer budget questions for them at that meeting, but we can at least listen to what they have to say. And if it's something that needs to come back to this board, as well as one of them coming to our meetings. I know that Bob has asked several times during their meetings that from their board, come to this meeting, our regular monthly meeting, and he doesn't seem to get any support for that.
Right.
I've seen Shelley here twice. Now granted, one of them was when she was newly accepted onto the board. But she's been here a couple times.
Look, they can make a request to be on Zoom first thing to present right at 7 o'clock. That's fine too. So there is definitely.
Right. I was disappointed that there wasn't.
If you want to step up, please do so. Thank you
I was disappointed that there wasn't more board support here for them last night. I understand Mr. Brown had it, and it had something that was
Start tonight.
personal related, but yes, or tonight, you're right, Glenn. I mean, they have 6 board members, I believe, and 2 of them showed up within 2 different nights. Bob's not a board member, he's an employee.
Well, back to my original question. Is there any negotiation on the 308, 301? Either way, up or down? If not,
We did cover our bases with everything else in the general fund, correct?
yeah, there's a few wish list items, but
And I agree with Mike that we do, I think it was Mike said this, we maybe, I don't know who
we
it was now.
defunded the Rotary shelter and we defunded the parking lot rebuild.
You know, there needs to be a prescriptive method for what's gonna occur in the next 12 months with the library so that they can be on board to make sure that that's on the ballot next fall.
At this, politely, at this point, I wouldn't hold my breath.
I understand that.
And I say that politely simply because until the last 2 nights, we haven't heard anything going on.
It's crunch time.
Yeah, and I have a hard time with, I thought it was very clear, the line, I'll say the line was drawn, because that sounds rude and inappropriate, but I thought we were very clear. Some things, this is what needed to be done, or there is gonna be a decrease. There is a decrease. I'm not
Well,
verbalizing it very well.
The
sorry.
decrease is still $30,000 more than what they got last year.
There is a decrease, there's an increase over last
An
year.
increase of 30.
Yeah, I just did a decrease in the
Of the
appropriation.
requested.
Thank you. And so, yes, and I have a hard time with it. I was going with the administrators, 209,000. I said that last night, and it's still where I am.
Well, we did choose to defund those 2 projects.
Why do we have to defund the projects?
Well, that's why I'm opening it up to negotiations right now.
Because the library will not operate.
The library can operate. Some things might have to change. They may not be able to get all the books that they require. I don't see our residents getting all the things that they'd like to get with our funds. And I know last night that we had a particular number, I was looking for, I cannot locate it. But how much of the general fund is appropriated or being asked for appropriations for the library versus the appropriations for all of the general fund?
It was, they were requesting for 54,000 something, ours was 67 something.
So I have some difficulties with those numbers. On the basis of all residents.
I don't disagree.
Especially when we have so many people coming in from the outlying townships, taking advantage of that library too, and our village taxpayers are the ones foot the bill for it.
What was their, I'm looking at, you guys at the library, what was the request last year?
278, 375.
What was approved? It was actually, I can tell you.
Because they had a request.
Well, what we approved is only, the difference is the 2 things that Bob stated.
302
It's
some.
Existing operations and the lawyers and the insurance. It's not adding anything.
All right, so so another take on this, here's what we're not thinking. Historical depot. The engineering repairs and deck replacement, the roof also needs to get done. We didn't allocate any money towards that.
Which roof was this?
The historical depot, the depot. Police requested speed signs, trailer for equipment, we allocated 0 funds towards that, and the in-car cameras. 0 funds were allocated towards that. Tennis courts. Where is this? What's O'Mara Park? Yeah, for Novellas. Oh, this is Parks and Rec. So this is sort of permanent cornhole, the skateboard park, the playground, 000, river erosion, 0. Obviously 0 towards pedestrian bridge. We had budgeted half the rotary roof. We zeroed that out. The parks, we got allocated towards that. We allocated at what 55, 1/3 of that. We zeroed that out. Tennis court resurfacing, 49,500. Was a big expense. We didn't allocate any towards that as well. And then the library roof, I don't think we allocated anything towards.
I have that allocated,
You do?
yes,
Is that on the library budget?
it's in general fund.
You have that allocated.
Yeah, I've got it under capital projects, 101,790, it's cell 648.
Yeah. So then, what, 474,301, is that your?
No, my ending fund balance is 375,000 in general fund. Because that was dropping it to the 2.5 months.
I've been playing all these tabs. So there is a lot we are choosing not to put any money to. There's a lot of needs out there, not just wants and desires. I mean, pickleball and tennis can continue to be played. People can continue to use the Rotary Pavilion. But where we are, like Jerry said, we're getting a crunch time with some of these. Not allocating anything this year, it sort of stresses budgets in the future, so.
Look, here's the thing, when we came on council. I think both you and I talked about infrastructure and taking care of things that we have, and I know Mike has talked about that. So you have the parking lot over at Farber Field, which is pretty much crumbling. And yet we can turn around and ask our area businesses to make sure their driveways are asphalted and upkept. And we're not doing the same thing. That's a bit hypocritical, I think.
Good point.
And we're kicking the can down the road, just like what happened to the wastewater treatment plant. At some point, these projects have to get done. And that was going back to last year when we told the library, listen, you gotta get the ball rolling because there's things coming down the pike that we have to take care of. And not every department got what they wanted. Just like that budget.
I'm looking at the priority list. Again, I know that we talked about that last night.
Mhm.
And I think the priority list is something that we, as a team, we looked at. And, you know, and I think that needs to be a guide.
No, you're right, you're right.
I mean, why do we do this?
Exactly. Why do we do this if we're not gonna?
You know,
You look at that priority list, and sometimes I think we've bitten off a little more than we can chew. There's a lot to maintain.
It's okay to dream though.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's okay to
Yeah.
look at big picture stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
well, and you know,
but we've got to start making a dent on some of these.
How much did we leave in for the potential replacement down the road of the steel structure bridge?
Nothing.
Zero. I had 0 there.
That's gonna come quicker than we want,
Oh, yeah.
probably within the next 3 to 4 years.
And at that price, I think you're gonna have to.
Consider taking it out
Yeah.
and reopening the
Or
lane along.
what
23.
funding mechanism do we use for the arch bridge? Bond.
Yeah.
We might have to look at something like that. I think that's the only way you get that project done. I don't know.
No, I won't disagree.
Carve out 700.
About it. And I just can't see our community saying, oh, you don't keep,
Right,
that's not,
that bridge comes out of there.
it's,
Our revenue is 2.2 million, I mean, that's 1/3 of our revenue.
Are we talking wages or no?
well, that were good.
I'd like to fund that parking lot in some capacity,
Which, or the farmer one?
yeah. And maybe not to the extent we discussed last night, but something's gotta go in there. That and the Rotary building. Maybe we can partner with Rotary on it. Rotary shelter.
Well, I'm gonna say objective 8, right there it is, for the park, for whatever, that's park, sorry, that's not the park.
It doesn't sound like much, but even $20,000 towards the Rotary shelter and $25,000 towards the parking lot gets it started.
Mm-hmm. And marking it today, designating it, a specific.
Yeah.
Designation towards it, not just over here to the south,
It's so much easier to say no when there's no money allocated to it prior to it.
right?
Like just the discussion on meters, like you're committing money for the next 6 years.
Mhm.
I don't know if the shelter's gonna, if we can take 8 years to pay for it, it's not gonna be 160 in 8 years, that's for sure. That's the other problem. But we gotta start building it up. Jared, I just said 20 towards the shelter roof and 25 towards the parking lot.
Better than nothing.
That takes the library down to 263,301, but their fund balance is still $108,000. I have that correct.
But of the 108,000, they're not quite sure.
Oh, no, Greg said about $10,000.
Yeah, he did. say
Oh, of the, that is committed, 10,000 of that is committed,
That's, that's
understand,
right from gifts and that
Yeah.
sort of thing that's earmarked, so.
earmark, okay. So. What are your thoughts on the library?
Along with what you guys have been saying, because we haven't seen a commitment from them. So I don't know what they're gonna do if we don't do the 301, but I guess that's on them. Give my thoughts. And we're letting a lot of projects go, so that need to
Oh, I
be
know.
done.
We continue to, I mean, we've been doing, I think, a really good job with what we've been having, but there comes a time where we just have to say, hey, it's time to go forward, get these roofs and infrastructure.
If not, we're gonna have to start looking at doing away with some stuff.
We've seen shingles missing on the depot, so it's gonna start peaking.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
Now we have more money involved, so.
And we have 0 allocated to the depot. Not that the bicentennial is putting pressure on me to invest in it, but that is an upcoming celebration.
I can tell you, well, inside the depot, they do have exactly that historical material of Blissfield that is tells our history.
Yeah.
It is irreplaceable. So I mean, how can we say no to something that's like that as well?
Yeah, I
Can't.
Would we go with the same type of wood shingles or would we just go to
Well, metal roof if you could. So I know that doesn't fit in with the historical look of the building.
yeah, wood shingles would be awesome. But we gotta start learning lessons.
Yeah.
how long have they been on there? I mean, they're original, I'm sure, but when we moved it there, we moved it. How many years has that been?
I don't know. I think when I got here,
92, 93,
We moved it over, so we're at 20 years.
30.
30 almost.
Well, yeah, you're right, 30. That's a long time.
yeah, we'll go with wood shingles. We'll be long.
Yeah. We'll let the grandsons take care of it.
That's right. Yeah, that was a bit of a shocking picture, so. And that was a section, Mike, does the whole thing look like that?
Just bits and pieces, there's like.
So there's no
They're
repairing,
big, so they're split and some are like half as missing or
there's no repairing, it's a terrible.
Oh, yeah. dry. Brittle.
Okay,
I mean, if you scroll through Bob's budget though, I mean, he literally went with inflation on their existing operations. And the wages are at 5%. I mean, it's not like above and beyond projects, it's literally operational, what they've done from previous.
The only department that's had operational inflation increases. They've had at least 3% every year for, I think I went back 5 years, where the other departments have either stayed or decreased. I'm not arguing one way or the other, I just pointing that out.
they have the funds to make up the budgetary shortfall.
How much is that roof for the depot?
I don't think we have it.
No, I mean, what,
The depot was asking for engineering and repairs 16.5.
oh, we don't have it, but that's what.
The deck replacement.
We funded the request, the basement issues, the deck issues.
Okay, so we, all right,
I
That
have
was
that
all
not
we did.
being included.
you have the depot not being.
Correct,
included.
I just brought forward the roof.
You just brought forward,
Yeah.
that's right.
And I think I incorporated the roof in the capital plan for next year, I can tell you guys.
Did we get an estimate for the wood shingles?
No,
No, we'd have to do that, we'd have to find
I
someone.
have a note to that. Well, I don't remember if you got that from me before that,
You guys,
because you sent that to me.
I said,
the depot's
like,
required.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right.
Anyway.
I think it was.
But
You let water start getting in and you're,
Doesn't take long.
When did you create that?
Yeah, I did that, and we started that in January with. I don't have it in there, so I've already got a folder for next budget year, and I know it's in
Because
there.
that's when I noticed when I was doing the lights last year
Yeah.
for fuel type.
all right, are we all thinking depot roof needs some solution? We do have money that we haven't spent. Oh, no, sorry, wrong fund.
Where are you at, general fund wise?
I'm
What,
just going with your numbers there, James, you and.
Yeah, the general fund, right now, I have you guys at $0, 2.5 month reserve,
yeah, so we're,
but,
we gotta like,
But that's what the library getting how much?
that is with the library getting 258,301. I do.
$5,000 much, that's okay. All right, so
Brandon,
Let's-
how can we use the
let-
fund balance in the building?
Okay, but
How can we use the fund balance in the building? Why can't we use that for the depot roof?
Why can't you use the fund balance in the building?
You have to be very careful with fund balance in building, because it's a special revenue fund designated for building. So there,
When the depot roof would not count toward that, because that's a building.
I'm with you, Lisa.
Like,
it's very fine, like you're doing together, so, we can't just use it for anything, because it's a special revenue fund. So anything that goes in that fund, that's the same within that fund, so.
What can you use it on then?
Correct.
That's it.
What can you use it on then?
Well, one of the things that I was thinking of, when I was gonna talk to Danny tomorrow, was I was gonna suggest that we can possibly take some of Stacy's wages out of the general fund and increase the building fund, because she works for the building fund. And she's been doing a lot more work this year with permits, a lot more. So justify that.
And that could be used for a roof.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah, no, that's literally an in and out fund. It's for permitting and everything else. It's in and out. It's much like a water fund. It's
but it has a $46,000 balance.
Great, that's why I've been trying to
that makes
figure
no
out.
sense. Yeah, how did it
how
ever
we-
get that high?
Well, because our permit fees are a little bit higher than our, I mean, I'm not sure historically, but they're a little bit higher, so we don't make much. I mean, you can see we're, I think $1,000 this year, so I don't know if that's been building over time. But that's what I'm saying. I've been trying to
Yeah, that
figure
makes
out
sense, right?
how can we utilize it? Right now it's just sitting there. It's not doing anything for us.
Seems to me the only way we can do is allocate more wages to it.
And why couldn't we allocate past wages that have been spent there that weren't expended there?
Allocate what?
Like, why couldn't it be a transfer to offset past wages that have been sitting in there? Because when I started, Holly's wages weren't coming out of there and we changed that. So all of those past years that it wasn't paying for that is probably why it has a fund balance. So there's no way for that to repay general fund back?
I'm not comfortable answering that question without looking up legal.
Well, because
I wanna be careful with that, so that we don't find ourselves in a bind, if you do something that we weren't supposed to do, like when we transferred that DDA. Money from the water to sewage to the DDA, legally, we were not supposed to. I haven't answered that question, I will make it so small.
And I agree, I don't wanna do something we shouldn't do, but I mean, water and sewer has paid back general funds, so could this not do the same?
Because it was designated as a loan. So it was designated as a loan, but this isn't designated as a loan.
it probably built up when the zoning administrator was its own position.
So
Because, or a separate position, not a position
right,
connected to the
That's what I-
administrative assistant.
So I mean, I don't want to answer the question that, like, you know, to make sure, like, we have some email. Go David, and then let you guys know.
Alright, so with that said. The rotary roof, let's reallocate that to the depot. As much as I hate to zero that back up.
Okay. Okay.
20,000 goes to the depot and. I think that's pretty much the wrap.
Why can't we do 20?
We can. We can, let's see what that looks like.
Where are we getting that 20 from again?
So the parking lot rebuild. At Farber,
Right,
the rotary shelter roof. And the depot. And then that would be. Danielle and I differ by about $5,000, but I'm at 248,301 for the library. I think you're at 253, 501.
She was at 258, 301 is what I had written down.
We are off somewhere, but that's okay. Still leaves them with a $93,000 fund balance.
And it takes care of their roof, not theirs, the library's roof. I mean,
Yeah, that's still.
that's
still-
sitting there already, so we know that roof is being taken care of, we know.
Well, it's got $100,000.
Yeah.
Funding.
So we're good.
That's $100,000 less than they're asking for.
Okay, so 2020. Would have, I'd have to reduce library to 248,301.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I have.
Is that what you have? Okay. And that would leave a 2.5 month reserve. And if we do that to the library to 48,301. That would leave them with $93,258 ending fund balance if their revenues and expenditures are fully spent. Because they're starting at 158,286.
I'm comfortable with those numbers. And the projects that go along with those numbers. Anybody?
How are you getting their fund balance that high?
Their starting fund balance is 158, 286. Total revenues would be 267, total expenses 332. So it leaves a fund balance of 93,258.
Yeah, that doesn't cut into their operations. I mean, that's literally the fund balance.
Yeah, if they want to continue operating as is.
Maybe that'll push the movement to becoming a district or see, again, if the outer districts or whatever have to pay to play or pay to use it, then it is what it is. They can't write on the village's backs forever.
What is their opposition to not going back to the Lenawee County Library System?
I think
I don't know the history.
Greg said that they'd be open to roughly
20 hours
a week, 20 hours a week. And there'd be a number of services they wouldn't be providing.
So they don't remain operational independently, then do they?
No.
Yeah, they would do whatever pot of amongst all of the libraries rather than us collect.
They'd be a branch of the district library.
I wonder how Tecumseh has done,
Their district library.
but what are they, Tecumseh School District? Is that what they encompass?
I believe so.
Because they're open
And
they're even open on Sundays.
they used to be a public library as well, and they went district. It's been a long time.
I mean, during the school year, I think they're open on Sundays even.
I'm not sure.
I looked up the hours today.
Okay.
But they're open almost 60 hours a week too.
What was it? Our appropriation then from the general fund for the library?
248,
That's right
301.
there. Okay.
Correct, that's what I have. If that's wrong, you guys tell me, but that would put us at a 2.5 month reserve. We've spent every penny we can to get to that point.
How are you feeling about that, Danielle?
I'm good, that's whatever.
It's passes the 209.
Yeah, I mean, I,
No, I would say it does surpass her 209. It's not quite what they wanted, but it's.
I mean, I don't know if that they're gonna be overly happy with that, but I do think we were very, all of us clear last year. I completely agree on the communication and not having it till the end. I don't think is helpful as well. I don't think it's, when we're looking at the whole budget, that everybody has to tighten their belt straps and make this work. And I mean, it should be across the board. With all the.
And how are you feeling about the overall then, I mean, from the 2.5 month reserve?
I'm okay with that. I definitely moving forward into the future would like to have the goal that we get to a point where we can maintain a 4-month balance. I'm not saying that has to be next year, but I think ultimately if we can keep checking these projects off and get to a point, I would be really happy with that. And again, I'm not saying even next year it has to be to that point, but I do think we are, and it's hard to see sometimes all the progress that we make, but I was just, while you guys were talking too, kind of going through like your goals. I mean, we're checking things off and we are making a lot of progress. And this goal list doesn't even include everything that we've checked off because we're doing things that are outside of it too. And if I think we look back at the last year, and in fact, if you guys, it won't take me probably too terribly long. I'll send you guys a list of all the things that we've accomplished in the last year or two, and I think we would be pleasantly surprised. So we are making progress, and I think we need to be proud of ourselves and keep that in focus too, that yeah, there's a lot of things that we're not funding, but at least we're not just saying, well, we're not doing anything.
And we're prioritizing and we're using those priorities to assist it.
We nixed the entry signs, correct, the wayfinding entry.
We
Oh,
did.
that's
Correct. Yeah, you're right, Gwen, we are.
I think we are
That priority workshop was,
beneficial.
yep.
And I think we keep doing that. So we'll, again, next year, we'll use this same one. I mean, it says right down there revised. We'll just keep adding and updating and go from there.
All right, see you guys back here at 7 tomorrow for wages. Or are we pulling in all night?
I had Bible school at 6.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
How long's that go? 45 minutes?
Hour and 15.
But then you have to take the bus and take people home, so.
You don't drive the bus?
No, I ride on the bus. But
Here's a
And
couple
wheels on
of
bus.
things. Could we start at 8 o'clock?
I think we have to have,
Does that throw everything off, or could we do it Thursday, or?
don't we have to have notice?
It's a work session,
So it
so
doesn't matter.
no, we could put something out. I can't do Thursday.
Okay, how does this fit into our budget talks?
So this recommendation is fully accounted for in the budget. So as long as you aren't wanting to increase this further, we're covered. If you want to make changes, and I kind of briefly said this already.
Yeah.
I would not, this is the recommendation from MML. The only change that I've made to this is that I've got the DPW wastewater and water treatment supervisors remaining at hourly, where the MML recommended that they be salary. And their recommendation was a 3% increase, and then every employee moved to the next closest level. So that's exactly what this does. If you guys don't agree with this or don't want to adopt this, then I would not piecemeal this together, because the whole point of this was to be fair across the board to the employees. So I would say you either look at this as a whole, or you tell me what you want to see that's completely different, that's going to be fair to everybody. Because if we start pulling employees out, we've completely defeated the purpose of doing this.
I'm fine with this. I've gone through it. And based upon missing the mark of keeping up with inflation, I believe 2 years ago. This brings them more back in line. So I do. The only issue I had was Parks and Rec coordinator, and I'm not gonna dig my heels into that, so. I actually thought this was quite telling. We were close, we came close, a lot of these were close, but. I think some of them were just starting wages too, and then increases. The starting wages, I think, were lower than. Market valuation on a few, but other than that, I think this is very close, so I'm good with it. Does anybody have any insight?
The percentages on the right-hand side, Danielle, those incorporate the 3% plus the step up to the next step, correct?
Correct, yes.
They also take into account additional pension contributions and whatnot, so it's not straight salary, it's sort of complete. Package, right?
Within the budget, that number is straight salary.
Okay, oh, okay.
I am a little worried. We should have set hard caps on position. For me, I mean, people do the same job and make less money. It is a morale buster. We're dealing with in my company right now. We got the same paramedics doing the same job, and the rates are all over the place. Where's the fairness in that? Giving just somebody only a 2% wage increase over others. I mean, I can't imagine. I understand that we're grossly underfunding some of our positions. But an 18% wage increase is 16%, a 10% wage increase while the others get free is going to be a major morale buster, and
It should not be a morale buster,
it absolutely is. And
but it should not be.
why shouldn't it be?
Well, that would be because these positions that you're referring to are positions that have been underfunded for a number of years.
Understood.
I'm talking a number of
Yes.
years. And why would you not want, as your team, as your community, as your group of people, not want to all make sure that everyone is fair and equitable and be paid appropriately?
I do understand that, but we also pay what we can afford. And
We can certainly
again,
afford
nobody's
this.
begging,
We can
nobody's begging
afford
for
this.
this staff.
We can afford this. It's already in the budget. We went ahead and we made this, Mike, you know this very clearly, because we talked about this. We know that what we've had did not work. It was archaic. This brings us up into the 21st century. It's with an independent consultant. It's neutral. It's non-biased. It's data-driven. These are recommendations from specific communities that we suggested, recommended.
And I get that, but they're totally incomparable to what's in Lenawee County.
That is it,
How does that not really?
this study makes us, when we're fair, we're equitable. I make.
It's not fair. Why would one police officer at full hire beyond probation make more than an officer doing the same thing?
Then why did we do the study, Mike?
I don't know. I knew it was gonna be a morale buster from the get-go. All it is.
I think that's a shame. If this is a morale buster, that's a shame.
Gwen, I promise you, you will have a union in here. I don't want to be on the council when a union is brought in to represent our staff, and I'm telling you, it's coming. You have no idea how miserable some of our staff members are with morale. In this workplace. I bit my tongue when we changed the hiring process and the policies and procedures, because that specifically stated in the resolution.
We continue to say,
fix morale.
we continue to
Yeah,
say,
the morale
you,
is
one of
going
the highest towers of this, that you want our employees to have great morale.
Yes,
You are right now singling out from your verbiage that you are using, you are singling out particular groups of people. And
absolutely.
that is absolutely inappropriate, Mike.
Why is that inappropriate?
Because this was a study for the words fair and equitable.
There's no fairness in here. There's no comparison to it. Have you,
Our people that are in those particular positions you're referring to have been treated unfairly from a salary for a number of years.
nobody begged when they knew what they were hired in at, right? They knew what they were gonna earn.
So why wouldn't we go ahead and put everybody on a level playing
Let's
field now?
play catch up. You're
When
giving
the
somebody,
opportunity arises and we had
I
this
can't imagine
opportunity
giving
now,
somebody.
it's arising. Oh, I do not agree with you on this, obviously.
Right. You
You
don't.
are not the experts. You are not an expert. I am not an expert. This is why we hired this. This is why you and me and everybody on this board wanted this study to be done. It was a big whopping priority. And now it's done and you don't like the numbers? Wham!
I think what this is saying is we're valuing the job.
Yes.
We're assigning a wage to the job.
Correct. But, well, we're not, because you've got DPW people making different wages, you've got police officers making
No,
wages. Why would us our own
we,
different wages?
we're assigning a dollar amount to the job. And that job comes with experience.
And longevity.
So
And you're giving the people with less longevity and less experience the biggest wage increases. Across the board.
I'm brand new to this whole process, but I think I remember this, that the purpose of the study was so that we were able to retain our employees, so they did not go looking for other jobs that paid more, that they would stay here. I thought that was the
Correct.
underlying purpose.
Retain, and the verbiage has been retain and recruit, retain and recruit. By gosh, we're gonna retain and recruit. Our benefits, when you take a look at that, the study, are some of the best benefits out there. And our salaries are coming onto board with a particular group of people.
You're looking at a almost $32,000 increase for those top 5 people, the chief, the administrator, the treasurer, the clerk, and the DDA director, who at the DDA
I asked
board level, we didn't even discuss any type of wage
I
increase
asked
because we didn't know about it.
Brandon to do
Wage
a
increase.
number for me. Brandon, can you explain these numbers I asked you about earlier today? The increases, the wage increase.
you're gonna have the.
Explain that.
Okay, so,
But you gotta, because they're all listening.
okay, so when the new transformation between the.
I can't understand. Here, you guys can't hear.
So. Based on the increase in the salary wages for the office workers, $6,342 is gonna impact the general fund. $1,480 is gonna impact the Leisure Street. $988 will impact the local. $7,728 will impact water, and $8,140 will impact sewer.
And it's a one-time catch-up. It's a one-time catch-up to treating our people fair and equitable.
I agree that they deserve some sort of increase, this massive step in the inequalities between the same positions and different wage increases.
This
Makes no sense.
This aligns them with what is actually happening out in the
Yes, in
workforce.
the real world.
What we've done prior to is pieced it together. And attracted and retained, however, but this actually allows us to compete against the municipalities listed and surrounding.
We're not losing our employees to the municipalities list.
That's right, not yet. Not yet. I work in Toledo. I know how competitive the job market is. Everybody's struggling to keep up with wages. It's tough, but this actually aligns them with the work that they're doing.
With that adopting this wage scale, we become nothing more than a training ground. We give people experience for them to find the next better paying job. That's my opinion.
I know that when I looked at it and I saw, again, a particular group of people you're referring to, and I saw how our wages compared to the other communities, I was appalled. Embarrassed is a good word as well, yes.
But a couple of things. just because we did the study, that doesn't mean we have to follow the recommendation.
No, we don't have to.
We don't have to, so
You're right.
I hear it's recommended, so that's what we're doing. That doesn't have to be. Next thing, why is Officer Huntley below Officer Portencast, Officer Anton?
Because the recommendation was to give the 3% increase and then move them to the next closest pay scale. And the recommendation for that was based on us catching up this year and not having a larger impact to the budget. So this is incorporating MML's recommendation. And I agree with you, it does not have to be adopted, and I clearly said it's up to you guys, either adopt it in full or don't.
What is it, the difference between SRO, SR officer and police officer? Is that why there's a difference in that?
It lists the two positions and the grades are exactly the same. So they're at different steps.
Who determines steps? What are the steps? When are those?
If this is adopted, we would implement a policy that is tied to each of those steps and when it would be approved. And then it would be incorporated into the personnel policy. And that way we would follow that, and then it would fall under that grievance or appeal process and that chain of command, like all of our other policies.
So a timeline step or a merit-based step?
It could be either or both.
Who determines that?
I lived this step promotion stuff for years, and it is a time-based timeline thing. From step 1 to step 2 is like 3 years. From step 2 to step 3 is another couple of years. But you do step out at step 10. And in my experience, when I would get a promotion, looking for a new job, for instance, they would take my scale to the end of my grade. And then, just for instance, I was at grade 1, step 10. That $24.84 would move up to the next grade, and then to the closest value, which would be 25.42. That's where I would start on my grade 2.
The nice thing about this, Mike, is it just clarifies what people can expect. This sort of it sets it out. If you want to come to work here, this is it. It's not arbitrary. It's not based on. It's based on data of surrounding communities. We probably have to revisit this. How often? 6 to 8 years. Make sure we're keeping up. What's the recommendation there?
Their recommendation is that we adjust for cost of living inflation annually, and if we do that, they're saying we would keep up with the market.
So how would Officer Hinckley ever catch or catch up with Officer Portencast and Officer Anderson? Never. Right? How the heck is that fair?
Well, no, that's not true. At some point he does.
What if he says, I don't want to be the SRO, I'm gonna be a police officer? Doesn't matter.
It's the same grade. So that
He's not gonna make any more money.
Ladder, right, SRO and police officer is the same grade under this, so it would just be a lateral transfer. So they,
Well, what about Nicholas Tran? How long has he been with the village?
You're given step grades 1 and 1, the highest increases.
because,
Yourself and Brandon and Lisa.
because
step one.
those are the biggest gaps. Everybody else was within the range with the exception of those couple positions, so that's why those are all a step 1, because that's the next closest step, because we're not even in our steps right now, where the
so
other
low,
employees
they don't
are.
even get there.
We knew when we were looking for an administrator, we were in the lowest 20 percentile. We were informed of that.
And she also took the job at what we offered.
You're-
I'm sorry, but
you're
that's
right about
fact.
You're right about that.
I hope it's pretty.
But there's also other municipalities out there.
I've taken jobs for less money before,
But
just to be closer to home.
there's also other municipalities out there that are looking for administrators or People are hiring.
You wanna talk about people that, are having some morale issues, wonder who they are right now, huh? 1, 2, 3, I know I sure would be having some morale issues. And these are the people that bust their ass, everybody in this. team-
Everybody in this
I-
village
And I
busts
did,
their ass.
let me finish, everybody on this team busts their ass. And that's why these 3 people, if we wanna go for this tit for tat baloney, deserve the money. To get caught up and to be equal. It's very simple, in my opinion.
It's not very simple when one police officer makes a higher wage than another police officer at full pay. Causes animosity. It's not
I guess
fair
I,
when
you
one
know what, Mike, I guess
DPW, one
I live with that
DPW.
animosity every day.
Huh.
Because that's how my teacher, that's
All right,
what I
well,
lived for 30 years.
I promise you, this will not help. I promise you, this will not help retain staff. Mark my words, this will not retain staff.
I mean, that's how we work with steps.
What do you mean you have,
You're,
teachers?
you're a first-year teacher, I'm a 30-year teacher. You're working and doing the same job as I'm doing. I'm making a whole lot more money than you are right now. I have seniority. I have knowledge that you don't have. And that's how that's paid. This to me is very clear. James alluded to it. It's very clear, you know, where you are.
Did we get an answer on Nicholas Strand, how long he's worked with the company?
I don't, I'd have to look that up, and I will,
Strand, probably
20 years.
10, 15 years at least.
he is the one exception, because he's the one employee that is currently over the maximum.
Because he has licenses. How do you
Right,
how
how
do
do
you
you
reward
account for
these
that?
DPW guys who get their licenses?
Because they get a step up.
He's got more licenses than the other staff. Has that been brought into account? I guarantee not.
In the trucking industry, when you add an endorsement to your license, hazmat, tanker, first thing the driver asks, am I gonna get more money?
Yeah,
First thing
absolutely.
they
Yeah,
ask.
do you have air brakes?
If
Do you
we
have,
go-
yeah, do you have hazmat?
If we go into-
Are you able to drive a bus and haul passengers?
Exactly. So I have all those endorsements. If we go into the industry I'm in, if I look at my salary, there's people that are making way more, and I've been doing this for however many years. So I'm not against the wage study because it helped us to see where we need to be. All the increases, do they need to be done? I think Danielle is saying her recommendation is you do it all or not, or all the same. All as a recommended, or you do the 3%. When I left here last night, I didn't open that email, Danielle, that you sent. I think it was 10:39 p.m.
Yeah.
I had to get up at 3 o'clock this morning. I've been up since then. So I left thinking we're just gonna do a 3% across the board, because that's what I heard. I didn't come prepared in this meeting to see this, put it that way. But as I see it, and I understand that we have a group of people, it's a large increase. I don't know if we
A
can do.
one-time large increase to be caught up with the rest of the.
Well, and it's not just them. I'm looking at Officer Hunkley here and Nicholas Strand, and
And they're getting a 5% increase. And you know, well, that last time I got a 5% increase,
well,
you don't wanna know. I have.
Well, have you ever received an 18% increase or a 10% increase or a 16%?
you better go after them.
That's how it works.
Officer Huntley, how do you feel about this? It's okay, I mean, this is.
Absolutely, we need to hear how you feel.
Help us make a decision.
There's so many police jobs out there. If I was looking for money, Blissfield would not have been on my list whatsoever. I was looking for a lot of jobs in this area. I was getting on MPOs, chief of police sites, Indeed, city, villages sites. In like Hamburg Township, once their contract's done, they're almost at $100,000 just base pay. Low crime, it sounds like it's basically a traffic enforcement job, which is pretty easy to be making that kind of money. I don't think there's a lot of mats out there where I worked for the county and I was very familiar with Blissfield. And I had the resources to look into the chief from the police and the fire aspect of what they thought, how he conducted his business. I knew Lieutenant Wagner, we both started about the same time, worked on him with cases, backed him up, he backed me up. He's one of the most honest people I ever met, and I knew he's a lieutenant, so working for him. And everything I could find out about Chief Greenleaf, that the guys really liked him, morale was good. I didn't want somebody, I had one place where you could get away with almost murder. There was no rules, no accountability. I didn't want that either, because that is sometimes worse than having a headhunter horrible boss. It creates a lot of problems. Where he sounded fair, but kept people accountability. I knew Officer Portacasa started right before I left, knew him. Nice guy, and everything I could find out.
So I'm hearing you say that morale's good in the department. And how do you feel, have you seen this? Have you been able to look at this?
Biggest issue that I saw, unless I was reading it wrong, was one of our comparables was a part-time SRO position that was an extremely low wage, so then it made me question, and I don't know about other jobs, so I.
Yeah, I think they probably dropped that.
Yeah, they dropped the lowest and they dropped the highest.
You know, like, how is it?
They still report it to us because they collected it.
I just was like, why would that even be collected? But some of them are generous. But there's so many other jobs close by that have a multiplier of the pension 2.75, like the city of Marshall, they're making over $30 an hour, comparable to this area crime wise. But I don't know that chief, I don't know the department. I want someplace where morale was good, that everybody got along, and I knew the community.
Do you like the idea that knowing the wage scale, knowing the next step? Do you like that, having it laid out for you? Do you like the fact that honestly, if this takes place, there won't be any negotiations on the way in? You know, well, there will be, your step and your grade will be, determined. But there'll be a pinpoint and it's sort of prescribed going forward. Is that something you're comfortable with?
I mean, for me, yes, but I don't want to speak for my coworkers. I don't think some of them are gonna be very happy with it, to be honest.
Okay.
I'm gonna make another comment.
Thank you.
Where we're talking about the 5% the teacher aspect. I would explain this to someone today. When we do a contract, we do 3-year contracts. What we did is we went ahead, this is I think the important part, is that we said, look, you've got 3 populations, if you will. You got your new teachers, you got your middle teachers, and you got your seasoned teachers. Okay, I'm a seasoned teacher. Well, the decision was made, the first year of the contract, the young teachers all got a big old good raise, an appropriate raise, a percentage raise, because they were the young people. They got it first. Why? Because then they would be able to have that for the next 3 years as well. Then the middle group went ahead and they got their raise. And the 3rd year around, that's when we, the seasoned teachers, got ours. And I look at that, maybe that's just how we think, but I mean, it's a team, man. That's just how you work through the contract. Everybody, I didn't get my raise right away, but I knew that the younger people needed the money to get caught up. I just think that's what you do. I know it's a recommended, these monies are in the budget. They can definitely be paid for, but that doesn't sound like that's the issue.
That is the issue. That's
No,
a big
if-
issue. That's.
If they can be paid, so how is that?
A year, and then 3% on top of that.
How is that, if it's in the budget and we can pay for it, how is that the issue? That doesn't sound like that's the issue to me. The issue sounds like it's because a certain group of people are getting a higher percentage. That sounds like the issue for you.
It's both. It compounds as it goes on. So once you raise that, and then it compounds as you continue on. Your 3% or whatever your wage scale is, or whatever your increase is.
But that,
Again, if I'm Jason Hayes and I'm doing the same job as Billy Wright or whatever, or Eric Person, like, why would I get less? Why would I make less than that? As a DPW employee. How does that make one bit of sense? If Officer Huntley's beyond his probation, he's a full-time police officer doing the same thing Is Officer Anton or Officer Portacasa, why should he make less money?
I don't know, it seems to me that. The Hayes has not been here as long as Mr. Purser. I mean, seniority and longevity is factored into this.
Some of it is.
Never had that though, that's the thing.
And
Never
that's why-
happened.
But that's why it was kind of.
But it wasn't broken, it worked. We had set pay scales. They just magically, the numbers got skewed somehow in the past four years. That's a fact. We set pay scales every year at every budget.
Yeah,
Right.
we have done that.
So people know what they're gonna get. People know what they max out at. If they hire in at what they're hired in at. I'm sorry that we're not comparable in some regards,
Okay, so
but we
we'll
also can afford
pump
it.
there. I mean, we're lucky. Quiet.
I could go Officer Huntley could go to Oak Park and make 80,000 as an officer.
And if he chooses to do that, God bless him.
Okay.
I don't mean that to be rude.
Could I say something real quick? It's not for retaining, my biggest worry for the concern of the police department is recruiting. What
Don't
brought
worry,
me here
we'll have to
was,
fill those jobs.
the community, the schools, like Blissfield schools, I want my son to go there, I'm very happy he's going there, he's gonna get a good education. Just, I've always really liked Blissfield, it's a nice town and I knew him. The other mats out there that aren't from this county. That's gonna be the draw where they see Oak Park or Lincoln Park or Amber Township, places like that where they're all about money. And then maybe we don't want those people to begin with, if that's what they're all about. But my connection with this community from working here and knowing it so well, eating at Lena's for lunch when I was a deputy, and used to stop and talk with Jake or Sam or Jim.
Right, you're here because you want to be, because of the
Because I went to
job,
be here because of
the
the
people.
community, money, obviously I'd love to get paid as much as I can, but that wasn't the biggest factor for me. With the other people, I'm just worried about, it's so hard to get people. When I applied here, I got a call from one police chief that I was kind of friends with, he's a retired deputy. That was mad at me, Matthew, why didn't you call me, I would have hired you. I had a school board member from another area that called me and asked me once I started if I was married at Blissfield and tried to sell me the perks of how awesome it would be, and the day scheduled, and the pay would be better. And another chief called me, Matt, when are you gonna come work for me? I didn't realize, I knew it was bad down here, but I didn't realize it was just as bad as up north. Just trying to get people, that's my biggest concern when somebody looks at it. Not mine.
Unfortunately, we're not gonna be able to pay those numbers that those other communities are gonna have regardless.
No, I know we'll not
I
be
mean,
able to
no,
play
no,
like
no.
Ann Arbor.
No,
But if you get somebody that doesn't like traffic and I've
Right.
never heard of this Blissfield place. Then I know you can only do so much with the budget.
And
But
I know this is gonna
it's just
sound funny.
my concern.
I understand.
I know this is gonna sound funny, but you're kind of making the argument for this. I know, like, you didn't start off like that. You
No,
said-
my argument it would be.
But this is transparent, public wages, and this is competitive for the
But I
area.
guess I'm not communicating effectively. I don't think the wages are going to draw people.
Okay,
The pension is great. I think the two things that would really help recruit people is if they saw $30 more an hour, a 2.5 multiplier, and the big thing would be the COLA rider with it. Which I know those things are
And we
cheap
can
at all.
be able to have.
so what this does is it addresses current wages. That's what this does. It raises it to a level that is a little more respectable for the area. That's my take.
That's a good word, respectable. That's a good word. Competitive.
Where you're right, we can't compete with the Ann Arbors and the Oak Parks and even Toledo. So. Any other input? Danielle, what are you looking for tonight? You looking for a decision one way or the other to present this?
I guess I need to know if I need to be working on something else.
For wages as the budget is concerned, you mean?
Right, because I didn't prepare anything in anticipation for this, other than what you guys have in front of you, which is their recommendation.
We have not kept up with inflation, keep that in mind. There was a couple years ago, I voted no against a raise because it was not even anywhere close to what inflation was.
Jerry, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, I wanna learn more about this. Obviously, we've only had this for a short time. I wish we would have had this discussion prior to going through the budget.
Yeah, right.
I'm not one way or the other on this yet. But I wish that we would have had this discussion prior to going through the budget.
Well, I'm gonna make the comment that we did have, not the people. Okay, not where it's personalized, but we did have the other packet.
Yeah.
Part beforehand.
Yeah, and I went through that.
Right, so we did have that.
This,
And the only difference on this from that packet is the 3% increase in recommendation in the people. Because like their numbers were 22, 23 wages, and if you read that report, it said the increase at 3%.
But this personalized with,
yeah, it's the discussion that goes along with it.
yes, I see what you're saying.
That's important to me.
Well, so what do we wanna do? Do we wanna call it a night, reconvene next week? What's our schedule next week? We have a meeting Monday. We've gotta get this hashed out before we approve a budget.
I want to talk to some employees about this. If that's okay with you.
To you guys.
I would not be available until next Thursday.
Do Thursday.
That's next, right?
Well, next Thursday is probably a little too quick anyways, if Jerry wants some time to talk to some employees.
We,
You know, I mean, like, since you're right back, yes. I think maybe one, that's maybe none. I don't see what you think of that.
So let's see, where are we? We are.
I don't think he's got any yet.
We're the
Oh, I
27th,
already haven't got any.
so.
Oh, yes.
and you go into Labor Day weekend.
Yeah, when is it you want to bring this to a vote?
I've
The budget?
got the budget scheduled for September 11th.
All right, so.
And this is the other, if you guys aren't increasing the wages more than this, you can approve the budget. We're just gonna be a little bit overfunded in our wages, so we can move forward on the budget. Just keep that in mind. I do need to know, obviously, because the wage scale needs to be adopted with the budget, but we can leave the budget as is and edit or do whatever to the wage scale.
Okay. All right, so how about tentatively the first week of September? Later, mid to late week, Wednesday? I don't want to be here Labor Day night.
No,
We've got planning commission on Tuesday.
You're talking September 5, 6.
6. Does that work, Mike?
Does
Yeah,
that
make it
work?
work. I'll think about
You have Bible study.
Yeah. I will be out of town until that day anyway. I'm coming back Wednesday, but I have Bible school, so.
This Thursday, what, no,
Thursday works.
Thursday.
It doesn't work for Danielle.
That's also farm to table at night.
Well, Danielle, did you move that actual adoption or passing of the budget to the last?
Yeah, I moved it up because you guys wanted me to give you an extra meeting to
Close,
approve
too.
it. So I scrambled and hustled to get that taken care of.
All right, last week of August. 29.
Nope. Wait, hang on, 29.
Next
The
week
only thing I
tonight,
have is the 29th.
I can do next week.
here in Oakland?
I only have 2 items on the agenda next Monday. We
Oh,
could do it after the meeting,
there we go.
like close the
Okay.
regular council
That-
meeting, and then we're not coming out an extra night, we're already
There we
planning
go.
to be here.
Let's do that.
26,
It's a short,
28th.
it's 28, it's a short agenda right now.
Keep it short.
Yep.
If you have some, I guess while you're doing that, check with Bob and see if, try to get those funds squared away and see if, make sure there's not some extra. Hey,
Yeah, I've got a note to reach out to him. I don't know when but I'll reach out to him and.
because regardless, everything that they draw in or goes out has to go through the pinch. I mean, that's how there's.
You're right. Yeah. Okay, so Monday. We will be back in session.
The regular meeting.
Regular meetings,
Then another
Need me to bring anything?
committee meeting.
Lisa needs to make cookies.
She can afford it, so it'll have to be somebody else.
All right, meeting adjourned.
Not really. I'll make them in my kitchen.
So, Officer Huntley, starting as the SRO next week. Exciting. Good luck. It is. All